Hey, what's up, good movie lovers? This is the Movie Preview Critic, here to do a Critic's audio commentary for Michael Bay's 2007 live-action Transformers movie, which, as we all know, just came out on DVD. This should work just like any other DVD commentary, except you have to sync up the video with the audio. Obviously, before listening to this, you should watch Transformers a few times so you know the story and characters. This way, you can focus a critical eye on the movie. For the best experience, watch the movie the same day before listening to this. I know that's committing like 5 hours of your day to Transformers, but hey, that's not a bad way to spend your morning, afternoon, or evening. Next, turn down the sound on the movie itself so you can just slightly hear it. Leave like 1 or 2 volume bars. And to make sure you stay focused on analyzing the film, activate the subtitles so you can read the dialogue, and press the display button so you can see the minutes and seconds clicking by. Finally, let's talk Transformers after this is over. Take your own notes as you view, question, listen, and answer. What do you think about the critiques and suggestions being made? Answer back with a video response. Post your thoughts in the comments section. And talk with each other in the YouTube group titled Till All Are One. You can link to it on the YouTube Movie Preview Critic homepage by clicking on the Groups button. After all, Transformers was made because market research showed a high audience demand for it. So if it was made because of the fans and for the fans, why can't the sequel be made by the fans, or their suggestions at least? We are in a movie democracy, so why not be active members of it? And just to be clear, this isn't a let's take a big hateful shit on Transformers commentary. I really enjoyed the movie overall, but when you consider the budget and all the talented filmmakers involved in every aspect of the production, you can't help but wonder why it didn't replace Citizen Kane as the #1 movie on the AFI 100 list. Just having Transformers be live action with some great CGI and exciting action sequences isn't enough. What about having a great story that's logical, where every character is motivated and three-dimensional? Why couldn't Transformers be like Lord of the Rings, The Matrix, or Spider-Man 2, with tons of amazing, groundbreaking CGI and ultra-imaginative visuals, but at its core, a solid story with great characters and emotion that any human being, regardless of race, creed, and age, could relate to, enjoy, and be touched by, because it explored not only the limits of the cinematic medium, but the contradictions of being human, of calling each other Decepticon and Autobot, but essentially being Transformer, of knowing that you were created from the same source, the same spark, from which all of you came, and yet failing to let that truth influence your existence because the greed of power and control are too great for some, while courage and nobility are causes instinctively championed by others. It's time to give Transformers some tough love here and now, so the sequel won't repeat the original's mistakes while addressing its missed opportunities. Wouldn't it be great if Transformers 2 was nominated for Best Picture, or at the very least, was better than the original? Will it dethrone the current Godfather 2 of sci-fi sequels, The Empire Strikes Back? And speaking of Empire, when you hear the critiques that follow, keep in mind that classic scene when Darth reveals he's Luke's father. Luke screams no, and Darth says,
"Search your feelings. You know it to be true."
That's what we're going to do today. This isn't about forcing an opinion, it's about raising some questions. And when you consider them to yourselves honestly, without bullshit and denial, when you search your feelings, you just might know the answers that follow to be true. Hopefully, at the very least, this will start a discussion that potentially leads fans to influencing the soon-to-be trilogy, which their enthusiasm and demand was responsible for creating. Okay, so load Transformers into your DVD player or ROM, then pause this commentary until the menu screen appears. So the menu screen is playing, and all the scenes are whirling around Optimus's hand as the Allspark floats above. Let's begin. Hit the play button. You're going to see a rating screen pop up, and it's going to say this film has been rated so-and-so and contains blah blah blah. Don't bother trying to fast forward. It doesn't work. It's going to last like 10 seconds. So let's just take this time to say, hope everything is going well for you and yours. I hope your movie choices have been worthy lately. How's school? Or how's work? Or how do you like parenthood? Or how does it feel to be retired? Okay, the DreamWorks logo's fading in, and the Transformer sound effects begin. This was a fun moment to be a part of in the theater, especially packed with a lot of fans. There were a lot of cheers and claps as soon as these sounds teased everyone through the speakers. What's interesting is that the Paramount logo is next. It's going to fade in with some more sound effects, and it almost sounds Decepticon-ish. So you have this DreamWorks Autobots and Paramount's Decepticon relationship kind of portrayed. And just to mention, this is something that you see a lot of in movies nowadays. Co-production of films. It more than likely began with Titanic around 1997. That was one of the first movies to have a $200 million budget. Co-producing is popular because, as it sounds, if the movie flops, each studio doesn't lose as much money. So pay attention to the opening credits of any movie. You can learn a lot about that film's production. Here's the first official, this is awesome moment of the movie. The voice of Optimus, providing a little backstory to get us oriented. It's also the first aspect of the film that could have used a rewrite. Why? Because if you notice later, this is repeated in the middle of the movie when Optimus explains to Sam and the Hottie how the Cybertron Wars began. It one-ups the opening because it shows what the other says. And as we all know, movies are primarily a visual medium. So if the choice is between showing the audience and telling the audience, always choose the visual. So why do the backstory twice? Why not just start the movie with the Transformers at war on Cybertron, showing the cube getting lost in outer space, and showing that both sides know it's going to Earth? Wouldn't it have been better just to start off with that big bang? Megatron and all the Decepticons fighting Optimus and the Autobots, introducing everybody that'll be in the rest of the movie right off the bat. The way it is now, we see Megatron in a flashback around the middle of the film for like 5 seconds, and then towards the end with like 30 minutes left. Couldn't this have been structured like Saving Private Ryan, with an amazing opening battle that puts us in the middle of the action, bonds us with the characters, informs us about the story, and sets up a bookend final battle that complements the opening and means more to everyone because we've been through a 2-hour journey with these characters. Keep that in mind, and we'll discuss it again a little later. Every movie uses its first act to basically establish all the horses that are going to be in the 2-hour movie race, or to show us all the trains on their individual tracks heading towards each other, promising a collision of drama, and in this case, action and groundbreaking special effects. So the soldiers are the first characters and storyline to be established, and apparently all we need to know about them is that this guy loves alligator meat and speaking Spanish. That guy is from Boston because he loves the Red Sox. This other guy loves his iPod, and the fourth guy has a daughter. That's pretty much all we're going to find out about them for the next 120 minutes, even though they're involved in a number of scenes throughout the movie. A sign that the action was more important than the characters to the filmmakers. Ask yourself, when Scorponok is attacking them later, did you feel afraid for them? Probably not, because you haven't had enough time to get to know them. And that can distance the audience from a movie, when the characters feel like strangers instead of family. Now, as we know, this helicopter, which adds an element of opposition to this soldier/army storyline, is Blackout. He's heading to the base to steal information related to the Allsparks location. By the way, pay attention to how fast the sun is setting. By the time he reaches the base, it'll be totally dark. I know it's kind of a nitpicky detail, but really, how long did that approach take? Coming up is the moment we've all been waiting for, a live-action transformation on a 70-foot screen. So it's great that some quality robot morphing opens up the movie right away, because one fear I had going in was generated by rumors that the ratio of robot to human screen time was like 20 to 80%. It turned out almost right, but it's more like 35 to 65%. However, After this initial attack, it's going to be like 30 minutes of all human scenes, not counting Bumblebee in car form. So let's ask a question. Wouldn't this opening sequence have been better if all the Decepticons who are already on Earth were in it? This way, you could establish Starscream as the leader of the Decepticons in place of Megatron, get them interacting with each other, convey their personalities, reveal their relationships, and create an audience bond by establishing them as the main opposition. This intro would work the same way the helicopter scene with the 4 soldiers did, establishing who these people are and how we, the audience, should feel about them. We need the Decepticons interacting and talking about robot baseball, arguing about speaking Decepticonese, and anxious to see a recent addition to the robot family. This is totally missed, and all we have is a transforming helicopter with no personality. Sure, it looks cool and makes you choke on your popcorn and grip your drink so tight it implodes all over your hand, the armrest, and the theater floor, but it leaves no emotional resonance. In a movie that claims there's more than meets the eye, why does it feel like the tagline should have been, "What you see is what you get"? Finally, it's time for the first on-screen transformation. Let's just sit back and enjoy this. That's an interesting choice, putting the camera behind a Jeep while the first transformation is occurring. There, I can see it. Oh, wait, there's another Jeep coming up. Okay, and then cutting away from that awesome transforming to some random soldiers. Okay, so I guess Blackout is transformed and he's ready to kick some ass. That's a pretty kick-ass image. Very nice effects. How about some more shots of Blackout? It's nice to see the havoc he's causing, but there we go. More excellent CGI. How about cutting in closer to him now? Okay, I think that's pretty much all the shots of Blackout that we're gonna see. Which kinda sucks, smear donkey. It's time to get a little bit frustrated. Let's be clear here. The first transformation here is the money shot of the movie, and it was missed. Imagine that moment in Jurassic Park when we get to see CGI dinosaurs for the first time. Spielberg films it perfectly, slowly, with a nice wide shot so the visual miracle can leave us in awe. That's how this moment should have played. By letting us see it all, not flashes here and there. We don't want jittery cameras and cutaways. Unfortunately, this establishes a pattern for the rest of the movie. This is one area that needs to be fixed in the sequel. Stay on the Transformers. Let us see it all. And that's it for this sequence. All we see are tanks blowing up and soldiers running and machine gun fire. But where is Blackout? It's almost like the CGI budget was too low, or they didn't have enough time to create all the shots they wanted, so they had to use that old-time movie monster trick, where you can't show the whole monster, so you show its hands, and then you cut to the people it's attacking. In essence, all we see is the effect of the attack, instead of the attacker himself. Okay, here's Blackout a few more times. Not bad, pretty cool, but not enough. And here's Scorponok being deployed for some reason. Why? Why did Scorponok have to be let loose? Because he has to chase the survivors later, even though at the time he's deployed, nobody knows if there will be any survivors. Not Blackout, and not even the soon-to-be survivors. The only ones that know are the filmmakers. Scorponok is being deployed because the filmmakers want it that way. Not because it's logical for the story, but because they need an action sequence later in the movie. I would have believed maybe Scorponok was deployed because he was going underground to cut the wires of the computer core. But no, he's let loose because the script needs an action sequence in like 25 minutes. So here's the illogical setup for it. Another note for Transformers 2. Please make sure characters are motivated by the logic of the scene, by the needs-driven conflict of all characters in that moment. Let this struggle lead to decisions that are simultaneously exciting, unpredictable, and logical. The second storyline starts with Sam Witwicky and the cliché action movie hot girl, who's not as shallow as she seems, if you get to know her and give her a chance to demonstrate hidden skills that will somehow assist in saving the day later in the story. Doesn't she seem too sympathetic at this point? The way she looks at Sam makes it seem like she knows who he is and that she kinda likes him, which makes no sense at this point, cause later she asks him if he's new in school. Also, this doesn't give her character much room to grow. Maybe she should have been given a larger distance to travel in terms of personal growth. She should have started as a Mean Girls / Devil Wears Prada stuck-up biatch. More than likely, this character was sold short because market research data showed that mainly teenage boys would be going to see this, and in the world of stereotypes, the only female characteristics they care about are T and A. We also get Sam's great-grandfather flashback that reveals nothing of importance. It just looks cool. Later, in the extended flashback, something essential to the story will be revealed, therefore justifying a trip back in time. As for Sam's intro, we understand he's a teenager that wants the girl, and the way to get her is by getting a car. He's kind of funny and likable enough, so that works well. But he too doesn't really have much room to grow as a character. Not that the main character needs to grow in every movie, but with him being a teenager and all, it seems that this would be a perfect time to expose him to an adventure that changes who he is by leading him to the destiny of who he's supposed to become. Ask yourself, what would Star Wars have been like if Luke hadn't grown as a person? What if he had stayed the same the whole movie? If his hero's journey was removed, and the film was just a collection of groundbreaking effects? Star Wars would not have become a cultural phenomenon and lasted 30 years. The filmmakers here know that Sam should grow, and they give him a symbolic line to repeat every now and then. No sacrifice, no victory. But do you really feel it means something to him when he says it? By comparison, look at the first Spider-Man. When Peter Parker says, "With great power comes great responsibility," you're emotionally affected by it, because you know what it means to him, especially after his irresponsibility leads to the death of his uncle, the man who told him those very words. Unfortunately, this gravity and emotional connection is missing from Transformers. Here's a perfect example of where the movie goes for the comedy instead of staying focused in the dramatic roots of the story. Just in general, comedy should always come from the conflict of characters fighting for what they want. The clash of unique personalities is what creates comedy, but the goals of each character should never be neglected or betrayed just to go for a joke. Here, Sam's goal is to get a car. Sam's dad's goal is to save money. Bernie Mac's goal is to sell a car for a lot of money. And Bumblebee's goal is what? To become Sam's protector and find out where the glasses are. So how does Bumblebee pursue and fight for this goal, which supposedly is a race against the clock? He uses his door to knock over the VW bug that's next to him, a homage to the original Bumblebee design from the Generation 1 cartoon. And he turns up his radio and blows out all the other car windows on the lot. Yeah, it's funny, but come on, it's ridiculous. So how could this have been done a little bit better? Let's consider the following idea as an alternate take on the beginning of the movie so far. So like Terminator 1, where the rebel good guy knows what Sarah Connor looks like, but the Terminator doesn't, the Autobots here have an advantage over the Decepticons. They know who Sam is, and they know he has the glasses. That should have been shown from the beginning. Connect it with the suggested backstory opening, where we already see the war on Cybertron, which eventually leads to the here and now. But show the Decepticons deciding to go after the government information to locate the Allspark, while the Autobots go after Sam and the glasses. Bumblebee should have... It almost seems certain that the reason the filmmakers made Bumblebee mute is because if he was able to speak, the story and action would have moved too fast, and that would have altered where the so-called story tentpoles would have been located. The Autobots would have had to arrive earlier on Earth, Megatron would have been set free earlier, and the whole structure would have been altered. With Bumblebee silent, it seems logical that he has a hard time telling Sam what he is, and what he needs. Due to this, the story is able to move a little bit slower. Now, what if the car buying scene started the same way, but once Sam got into the car, Bumblebee took off, kidnapping him? Bernie Mac and Sam's dad would think he stole the car. Bernie Mac would turn to Sam's dad, they'd stare at each other, and Bernie would say something funny. Then you cut back to the car. Bumblebee, able to talk, tells Sam who he is and what he wants. The glasses. And he wants them right now. Because why would he wait around and play all these bullshit dating games for Sam if it's a race against the clock? But don't make it easy. So Sam doesn't believe him. And Bumblebee knows the only way to convince him is to show him the truth. So he takes him to the junkyard and transforms. It's a nice wide shot so we can see the transformation clearly. As a result, Sam becomes a believer. He confirms he has the glasses, and Bumblebee gives the signal to call the Autobots to Earth. Basically the same scene that happens a little later, but now it has a logical reason for existing. As it is in the movie now, Bumblebee has no real motivation to all of the sudden call the Autobots to Earth. But we'll talk about this a little bit later. So Bumblebee says let's go, but Sam's not ready to give Bumblebee the glasses. He wants to use Bumblebee to get something first. Again, don't make anything easy for anybody. So we cut to Megan Fox and her football boyfriend and their friends chatting at the DQ or in a school parking lot or wherever, standing next to the Hummer. Sam pulls up stunt car driver style, screeching and doing donuts. And he challenges the football guy to a race or something. If Sam wins, he gets to take Megan out on a date. But since it's a Hummer, the guy probably says no, he doesn't want to race. He uses the car to impress people, not to win races with. And he's not impressed with Sam's beat-up car that can do donuts. Until Sam gives the signal and Bumblebee transforms. Maybe he can destroy the Hummer or smash it or something, pick it up. We cut to the next scene, which is Megan in Sam's car. And maybe she's saying a line like, "So what is this, Japanese or something?" And still keep her sort of a hottie snob at this point. She needs room to grow. There's a reason she's been with this cliche jock character up until this moment. And remember, the robots don't have to be the only characters that transform in the movie. Why not have some transformation of character? And we've just passed up the introduction of the third storyline. The Pentagon and the hottie blonde with an accent trying to crack the Decepticon transmission. At this moment, Transformers adheres to movie cliché number 15. Any female who knows anything about computers has to be a hottie. The Mojo scene. This is funny and quirky, and we meet Sam's parents and everything, but ultimately it doesn't move the story forward. Bumblebee is still mute, and there's no progression towards any kind of goal. This is a still scene. If we continue with the alternate rewritten story idea, Sam would be here to get the glasses and give them to Bumblebee, with Megan Fox in the car. Another nitpicky observation here is that when Sam starts the car, there's all this smoke. It's definitely funny, but it would have to mean that Bumblebee purposely let all this smoke loose. Because, in reality, it's not a beat-up piece of car. So why would Bumblebee let all that gas go? Is he letting loose a big Transformer fart on Sam's dad? If that's the case, then there were some missed close-ups of Bumblebee's reactions to Sam's dad's comments. It was probably done just for the comedy, which again is at the expense of logic. One interesting choice is that unlike other aliens have invaded Earth movies, like Independence Day, Transformers has the Secretary of Defense as the main Washington, D.C. character, not the President. This actually works, because all the President characters do in those other movies are ask the advisors what they think and say yes or no. So why not focus on the character who's giving the advice in the first place, and ultimately makes the decisions? This is a nice twist on the usual. We cut back to the surviving soldiers and find out why Scorponok is after them. Because their sharper image binoculars has recorded footage of blackout, and the soldiers are trying to get it back to the Pentagon. Wow, that'll ruin the Decepticons' plans for sure. And again, how did Blackout know to deploy Scorponok because the soldier with the binoculars would be one of the survivors. Back to Bumblebee and Sam, and his tree-climbing friend going for a drive because the movie needs to kill some time in between major action sequences. This scene really does nothing for the story, and it starts a sequence that ends up throwing away like 7 minutes of there could have been Transformers on the screen fighting or at least talking with each other during this time. There's also a missed opportunity here. This scene is a setup. The jock boyfriend with the expensive car. It's just begging to have another scene that pays off, where once Sam realizes his car is a Transformer, these two meet again, and Bumblebee destroys the jock's car. The jock needs to get owned later because he owns Sam here, but it never happens. The jock who rubber-banded paper in Sam's face earlier and owned him here gets away scot-free. Obviously, the romance between Sam and the hottie has to have some time to develop and establish itself. But the story doesn't have to stop. How does the romance between Neo and Trinity develop in The Matrix as the story moves along? Or in the first Terminator, Kyle and Sarah fall in love as they fight to stay alive. Or in Lord of the Rings, Aragorn and Arwen bond as they pursue their goals. Even Han and Leia develop feelings for each other as they battle the Empire. They don't take a 10-minute break to get to know each other. And also, isn't Bumblebee in a hurry? Doesn't he know the Decepticons are on Earth, and they're looking for information that could lead to Sam? Wouldn't he be worried that maybe they know where Sam is, and that they're after him right now? Wouldn't Bumblebee want the glasses as soon as possible? So why is he trying to get Sam some girly action, when he should be providing the audience with Transformers action instead? And by the way, why does the hottie get upset at the jock when he refuses to let her drive? This isn't their first date. She knows what kind of character he is, so the things he says and does wouldn't bother her. She leaves because the filmmakers need her to get on the side of the road so Sam can pick her up. Wouldn't it have worked better and been a bit more satisfying if Sam had fought for her? If he had done something to make her want to go with him? Or at the very least, if she had gone with Sam to make her boyfriend mad, to get him jealous, with an ulterior motive, showing that she can be manipulative. Then, as she spent time with Sam, her feelings could begin to change. The way it is now, it's too easy and nice. There is no complexity to the characters. Where are the shades of gray? Where are the conflicting emotions? Oh yeah, in the alternate reality version of Transformers, written and directed by Peter Jackson, or Christopher Nolan, or James Cameron. Here, the hottie gets in the car, and more comedy follows. It's entertaining and everything, but honestly, how many of us were sitting in the theater wondering when Optimus, Megatron, and the rest of the robots were going to show up again? There's still going to be like 4 minutes of this Bumblebee tries to hook up Sam with the hottie sequence. When you watch this, do you find yourself losing interest? Wondering when the action is going to start? Wondering if the hottie is going to show any skin? Again, the problem with this whole sequence is that it basically pauses the story regarding the glasses, the Allspark, and the Decepticons Autobots battle. The only thing this sequence deals with is Sam and the girl he likes. Again, even Bumblebee, the character who should be focused on the glasses, forgets all about them. There could be an argument here to defend this sequence that goes something like this. You have to show these characters growing to like each other before the action takes over the story. That's what this sequence sets up, so you don't have to worry about them getting to know each other later. This argument assumes that the only time to get to know someone is when things are calm and quiet. But it's the opposite that's true. In the same way as a diamond is formed by applying pressure, so too do people reveal their true character when things are going bad. Give people a problem to solve or a situation to fix, and their true colors will show. The way this sequence is now, it's basically two people talking, not fighting, not in conflict, but sort of sitting around at a bar after work talking about their lives. That's when most people are at their most defensive, when they're comfortable and in control. Take that safety away, put them in danger, out of their comfort zone, and watch them discover truth about themselves they didn't even know. Nice shot of the hottie's tight abs right here. If anyone's listened to Michael Bay's commentary on the special edition DVD for Transformers, you might remember him saying the reason he cast Megan Fox was because she had a nice stomach. Which makes you wonder, was that all the filmmakers cared about when creating this character? Conflict to a character in a movie is like floodwater to a basement. Once it happens, you have to throw away all the shit you've been hiding and clean things out. Drama, conflict, and struggle in movies are like spiritual enemas for the soul of a character. They force them to deal with their emotional shit. That's how, most of the time, you know you have shallow characters in a movie, if the conflict doesn't impact them emotionally. Because remember, at the start of most movies, characters are in a comfort zone. They have a calm and peace about their situations in life. A movie is nothing but struggle and conflict, so for any character to take part in a goal-pursuing struggle, it means they'll have to look inside themselves, find something they didn't know they had, and release the things about themselves they no longer need. It's like Joseph Campbell said, the journey the hero gets is the one he or she is ready for. So what's the journey these two characters, the Hottie and Sam, are ready for? How will dealing with the Transformers transform them? If this sequence was to be incorporated into the alternate reality version of Transformers that we've been developing as we move along in the commentary, then this sequence would have taken place right after Sam leaves his house with the glasses, and Bumblebee would have been taking them to meet Optimus, with hopefully the Decepticons on their trail. It's about to cut back to the third storyline, the Pentagon, where the computer hottie with the accent is trying to crack the Decepticon code, and we'll notice Frenzy's infiltration into the computer system. Then it'll cut to Air Force One, where the Decepticons are trying to break into the system once again after their failed attempt earlier, which kind of makes this scene a repeat. So let's ask a question. What would have happened if the Decepticons had succeeded in getting the information the first time? Perhaps the story would have been moving faster, sooner. But again, because the tent poles of the story structure were set in stone, all these scenes of comedy and romance had to fill in the gaps. And, by the way, why didn't we see the Decepticons in a fourth storyline where Blackout reported back to Starscream and everyone else that the mission had failed? Then we could have seen them interacting and, more importantly, see them hatch this scheme to go on Air Force One and steal the information there. But for some reason, the filmmakers didn't want Transformers on screen too much in a movie called Transformers. So all of that is off screen, and we're left to imagine what it could have looked like, and accept the fact that, oh, okay, Frenzy is just on Air Force One already. And has anyone noticed, Frenzy sort of acts like Spike, the evil Gizmo character from Gremlins. Now ask yourself, who is your favorite Decepticon? It's probably Frenzy. You know why? Because he's the Decepticon that has the most screen time. And as a result, we get to know him. Imagine if Starscream, or Barricade, or Devastator had had that opportunity. Again, another request for Transformers 2. Please make sure there's more robot screen time for both sides. Okay, since Frenzy's a boombox at this moment, let's talk about Soundwave. As we know, Frenzy is originally one of Soundwave's cassette tapes that he ejects from his chest. If you watch any interview with the writers, they'll report that they had Soundwave in the original drafts of the screenplay. But as the story developed, Frenzy's role seemed to increase. At first this could sound like a smokescreen, covering up the real truth, which is that Soundwave was held back for the sequel, so there would be some stronger incentive for fans to see the next movie. But when you think about it, since apparently there was a decision made not to ever show the Decepticons on their own planning attacks, it would be hard to show Soundwave when it's the tapes, or Frenzy, that's doing the dirty work. If you remember in the cartoon, whenever Megatron needed information, Soundwave would send one of his tapes to spy on the Autobots. So, if the writers had Soundwave sending Frenzy around to get this information, it seems logical that as a result, the camera would be following Frenzy more and more, and with Soundwave, less and less. Also, there's the issue of Soundwave as a boombox. In an MP3 iPod world, A huge boombox seems kind of lame. So, no doubt a redesign had to be thought through. Most likely Soundwave will be something completely different in the sequel. And as a homage to the original cartoon design, the filmmakers had Frenzy turn into a boombox here. As you watch Frenzy successfully gather data, doesn't your heart start to race? Maybe your forehead is starting to sweat? Why? Because the Decepticons, the true opposing force in the movie, are starting to become a threat to Sam and the Autobots. We know this attempt at gathering information will be successful, and they're going to find out who and where Sam is. We start to feel tense because the main character is finally in danger. So why haven't we felt like this for the last 15 minutes? Let's add to our alternate rewrite of the movie. What if this had happened earlier? What if this was the first attack and right off the bat, the Decepticons knew who and where Sam was? That would have jump-started the movie, sort of like Terminator 2. The T-1000 arrives, gets in the police car and looks up the name John Connor. But, as an audience, we know the T-800, or Arnold Schwarzenegger, is on the way to protect him. It's a race to see who gets to John Connor first. Why doesn't that happen here? A race to see who gets to Sam first, Bumblebee or Barricade. Imagine if this had been established earlier. An unknowing Sam in the middle, the Autobots and Decepticons, closing in on both sides. We would have been on the edge of our seats sooner, because it's this tension, this feeling of trains on the same track, heading for each other at 100 miles per hour, that's been missing from the movie so far. In just a few seconds, Frenzy will escape as Barricade picks him up. Notice the eBay product placement on the computer screen. Transformers is a pretty big advertising whore. You'll notice products everywhere. But that's nothing new in movies and in Transformers. It could be argued that the original cartoon was created for the sole reason of supporting a toy line, making it essentially a half-hour-long commercial. But some of these placements in the movie are too obvious and take you out of the zone of forgetting you're in a theater. This is where someone would usually promote a drinking game. But to keep everyone sober, let's create a non-alcoholic game. The breathing game. So instead of taking a drink, every time Transformers has a product placement, take a deep breath. Let's get in touch with our Zen state. I know I need to, because every time I see these advertisements, a little bit of frustration rises up in me. Taking a deep breath helps calm that down. So let's be on the lookout for those ads. By the end of the movie, we all might be Zen masters on the verge of nirvana, or at the very least, we won't want to launch our DVDs across the room. With the Decepticons finally after Sam, it seems that momentum is picking up. So the next shot is Sam's house. Good. But, for some reason, Bumblebee just starts up and leaves. Why? We know he's going to send a signal to Optimus and the Autobots, but what made him do this right now? Did he intercept a Decepticon transmission? If so, why didn't we see or hear it? This action just comes out of nowhere. Oh wait, I know who sent Bumblebee the signal. The filmmakers. It must be, because there's nothing on screen that we've seen that logically motivates this action. If Bumblebee intercepted a Decepticon signal, wouldn't he have taken Sam with him to protect him? Oh, that's right, he can't talk and warn Sam about the danger. And he hasn't revealed that he's really a Transformer. So what song could he play? Maybe Mr. Roboto. And regarding the threat to him, maybe he could play a clip of Robbie the Robot. Danger, Will Robinson, danger! No, instead, Sam will chase after Bumblebee, creating more comedy. Again, the movie goes for laughs instead of story integrity. Now, it is funny, Sam on the bike calling 911, but sort of anticlimactic considering what was just set up in the previous scene with the Decepticons learning that Sam is the key to locating the Allspark. So where does Bumblebee go? To a junkyard. To transform and send a robot bat signal into outer space. So finally, Sam learns the truth about his car. It's okay how Sam learns this, but it was so accidental and inadvertent. Wouldn't it have been more engaging if Bumblebee had meant to tell him or to show him? What if Sam didn't wake up? What if he never followed Bumblebee? Then how would he have learned the truth? When you think about it, Bumblebee didn't need to start his engine so loudly, unless he wanted to wake up Sam. And if that's the case, there should have been a couple extra moments where Bumblebee revs his engine loudly and Sam starts to wake up but is still asleep, and then he revs it again and finally wakes him up. This way we know Bumblebee's intention. So remember, for Bumblebee, being a car is just an act. He could have just slipped away quietly if he needed to and sent the signal without anybody seeing. And is this the only way he can contact Optimus? By sending a beam of light out of his chest? Couldn't he just use his transformer, radio, Wi-Fi, intergalactic, secure channel to send information? This whole moment is just for show, just to have a cool looking image. This moment is done purely for visual gratification, which is okay. That's a major reason why we're here, to see live action transforming on the 70-foot screen. But why not hinge it on a thought-through story? The unfortunate aspect here is that this is the first time Sam sees Bumblebee transform. So shouldn't he have seen it close up instead of from a football field away? Wouldn't it have had a greater impact if Sam could reach out and touch Bumblebee's leg to show the scale? Just a minute before, Sam was taller than his Camaro. Now it's towering above him. If this had happened, the scene with the little girl by the pool wouldn't have been necessary. That moment of awe and amazement should have been transferred here to the main character where it belonged. Going back to our ongoing alternate rewrite, this scene would have taken place earlier in the story, setting characters in motion from the start. Like Barricade, for instance, who might have picked this location to show up. This junkyard would have been the best place for the first fight over Sam to occur. But as it is in the reality of the movie, that fight happens about 15 minutes from now, after some scenes from the first storyline dealing with the soldiers and the third storyline dealing with the Pentagon. After Sam sees his car change into a robot, he runs and encounters some dogs on guard, who of course break their chains out of the cement wall and chase him into a warehouse that by chance has some cinematic lighting, and Bumblebee crashes through and does some donuts. Again, he can't talk, so maybe he's trying to write something with his tires in the dirt. But before Sam can read it, the cops show up, stopping any momentum this scene was creating and leading us to a police station. But first, we cut back to storyline 3, the Pentagon, where the blonde hottie with an accent who knows all about computers sneaks into an all-guys meeting to tell them about her DNA-based quantum computer theory. Of course, she gets the cliche movie rule number 28 brush off, which states that any character in a movie who knows what's really going on will not be believed by anyone in a position of authority until it's too late, and as a result, will always be forced to take drastic action. The drastic action here is stealing computer information so she can take it to her DDR-playing hacker friend. With that established, it cuts back to the police station, where Sam is being interrogated after being caught in the junkyard. So let's ask some questions. Does this scene need to be in the movie? Does it move the story forward? Does it provide opposition to Sam's needs and goals? If the answers are no, no, and no, then why is it here? Because, you guessed it, the comedy. It should be on the DVD under deleted scenes. Also, if it's daytime during this moment, and Sam was caught at night, wouldn't that mean that 5 or 6 hours have passed? So where are the Decepticons? Where is Barricade and Frenzy? They know who he is. And if Barricade is a police car, he might be able to pick up police frequencies. Wouldn't they have intercepted the cops reporting that they captured someone claiming to have seen their car transform into a robot? Oh, that's right. Forget about them. The opposition isn't important when you've got comedy, and as a result, the main story is on pause. So what happens here? Some undercover cop, who looks like a cross between Ben Stiller in Starsky and Hutch and the Ethan Hawke character from Training Day, after he got a demotion, interrogates Sam about being on drugs. Again, there's a lot of funny moments here, but they ultimately don't lead to anything. Sam's dad never mentions this again or grounds him, and we never see the cops again, which violates a basic rule of screenwriting that states, anything set in motion stays in motion, or if you set something up, pay it off later, therefore making the scene either unnecessary or a missed opportunity. Why a missed opportunity? Because what was the last thing Sam said to the police officer? Are you on drugs? So, wouldn't it have paid off perfectly if later in the movie this same cop would have seen Sam with Bumblebee in robot form and had to question his own sanity. Or maybe the cop would have stopped over to Sam's house at the same moment the Autobots were hiding in the backyard. He'd be at the door, ringing the bell, waiting for an answer, when a noise would get his attention. Then he'd look up and see all these robots standing around. Sam could then answer the door, and the cop could tell him there are giant robots in his backyard. Sam would step out, look around, pretend not to see anything, then look back at the cop with a smirk on his face and say, "Are you on drugs?" Boom goes the dynamite. Revenge is sweet. Or it could have been, if that scene was written. So the Scorponok action sequence has been going on for a few minutes here. Sorry about the overlapping thoughts from the previous scene, but there's just too much to talk about. As for this moment, visually it looks great. Don't get me wrong, watching it in the theater was awesome. But when you see it a few times, you recognize it for what it is. A red herring. A decoy. Upon initial viewing, it seems like it moves the story forward. But does it really? Other than being an amazing genre set piece, what does it add to the overall story? The Sabot round. That's about it. The information that the metal on the Decepticons can only be affected by Sabot rounds. And it has way too much comedy. Can you think of other action movies that have incorporated comedy into the middle of an exciting shoot-'em-up explosion moment? A credit card? Are you kidding me? This is bordering on becoming Mars Attacks. When funny enters an action scene, fear, tension, and suspense leave. Don't you want to feel the fear that the characters might get hurt or even die? This moment belongs in a Naked Gun sequel, not in Transformers. Again, the comedy here is a band-aid, trying to cover up the fact that the story is being neglected. Ultimately, what does this sequence add to the overall story? Here are some questions. What goals in opposition, what struggle of needs created this sequence? Why did Scorponok attack the soldiers? Because of the recording binoculars they have? Really? Because the soldiers are planning to show the Pentagon people their high-tech Viewmaster with a low-angle distorted image of Blackout. So, what? What's the worst thing that's going to happen to the Decepticon plan if the government has that footage? Well, we don't know, because the only characters that can answer that question are the Decepticons, and we never see them on screen strategizing. It would have been great to see Starscream giving orders to Scorponok and revealing what was at stake if his mission failed. And later, when it does fail, it doesn't matter, because guess what? The binoculars never come into play. So what was the point of the desert attack? What did happen was the army got a hold of Scorponok's tail, which led to what? Nothing. It's never mentioned again. And the scene ends with Scorponok burrowing into the ground and basically disappearing from the movie. Wouldn't it have been cool to have had a moment where Scorponok reports back to Starscream that his mission failed, that he's badly injured and he needs to be rescued or he'll die? It would have been so much fun to see Starscream tell him that he doesn't tolerate failure and that someone that incompetent deserves to die. Would have been very cool, but not in this movie. So, when faced with the power of story logic, this sequence reveals itself to be here for the sake of an oil and water mix of action and comedy, but mainly to satisfy the audience's genre expectation of seeing Transformers in action. Too bad it doesn't exist because of the main story's dynamics. It's like during the script meeting, the consensus was, let's have some funny moments and some big CGI action moments and everyone will be happy. Who needs a good story if you've got razzle-dazzle? And that's this sequence. Razzle-dazzle that fizzles when challenged with story logic. It's definitely a successful CGI action accomplishment worthy of playback on your home theater with surround sound. But, in terms of story development, it's a miscarriage. Next, it cuts back to the hottie computer girl and another blatant product placement. Watch how slowly she takes this Panasonic memory stick out of the computer drive, then turns it so slowly that we have plenty of time to read it. Okay, take a deep breath. Now, the third storyline branches off, just following her going to the only hacker in the world who can break this code, Anthony Anderson. Okay, I'll suspend my disbelief enough to believe that a guy living in his grandma's house is the only person that can crack an alien code, and that he does it in 10 seconds just by pressing a few buttons on his home e-machine's computer. Let's point out that this scene is a good example of comedy and story working side by side. The hottie has a goal, break the code, and she pursues that the entire time, which is great. The comedy is a result of the nature of Anthony Anderson's character. It doesn't take place of the story, it coexists with it. Well done. The problem with the comedy in earlier moments of this movie is that the comedy is the only element in those other scenes, replacing the story, which is on pause. Comedy should be like a cherry on top of the sundae. You always have to remember, it's a topping, not the dessert itself. It cuts back to the Pentagon, where the Viewmaster binoculars are mentioned, as if that's enough to justify the entire Scorponok action sequence. But it turns out they're damaged, so the image is useless, just like the previously mentioned sequence itself. They also discover that the hottie blonde made a copy of the alien code. Then it cuts back to Anthony Anderson's hacker laboratory, where he breaks the code and gives us important story information just before he's interrupted by the FBI. Is it stupid to want to see or at least somehow find out about how the FBI learned where she was? Where she took the disc? Did they trace the hacker's signal? Her cell phone? I guess we'll just have to blindly accept it. It's almost like the filmmakers said, as long as the action keeps happening, no one's gonna ask any questions. It then cuts to Sam, laying in bed, relaxing, and shooting hoops in his room. Let's be clear about this. We're 50 minutes into the sci-fi action movie Transformers, and the main character is laying in bed. He doesn't know anything about the Autobots, Decepticons, or the Allspark. Does this seem wrong to anybody else? Let's compare. What was Neo doing 50 minutes into The Matrix? How about John Connor 50 minutes into Terminator 2? What about Peter Parker 50 minutes into Spider-Man? Frodo 50 minutes into The Lord of the Rings? And of course, Luke Skywalker 50 minutes into Star Wars. Answer: they weren't lounging around waiting for the movie to start. When analyzing this movie and applying some basic rules of screenwriting 101, you realize the first act of Transformers is about 60 minutes long. That means half the movie is set up. It's 1 hour of getting the horses to the starting gate. How is that possible when the first act of any standard movie is about 30 minutes long? Because the key component of the first act hasn't been established until now. An active main character that pursues a goal, a need, an objective. Also, what makes that main character, the hero, want to pursue that goal is the inciting incident, also known as a causal event, which finally happens here, when Barricade attacks Sam and Bumblebee saves him, then takes him to Optimus, and he learns the glasses are the key to getting the Allspark. Notice after that moment, when, along with Optimus and the Autobots, Sam is pursuing the goal in every scene, our cinematic instincts signal to us that the movie has finally started, the story is moving forward, and the horses are off to the race. Also notice, the comedy is still present, but it's secondary, because the characters are actively pursuing the goal in each scene, and comedy no longer has to fill the on-screen silence which earlier was caused by the absent momentum of the story. By the way, at the beginning of this sequence, why does Bumblebee just show up? Let's use that annoying thing called story logic again. The last time we saw Bumblebee, he was doing donuts in a warehouse after sending a signal into space. Where has he been since then? As we find out a little later, Optimus sent Bumblebee here to protect Sam and to find the glasses. But the problem is that at this moment, and moments previous, Bumblebee has not been acting according to those orders. His goals, his needs, are not defining his actions. Basically, he shows up when the filmmakers decide he does. This same unmotivated action holds true for the Decepticons. Where have they been since they stole the computer information? It's been almost a whole day since they were successful. Why haven't they kicked down Sam's door yet? And as Bumblebee chases Sam down the street, he's basically pushed by the invisible hands of the writers and director guiding him so that Sam and the hottie can get together. There's no logic here. Why does Sam get on his sister's bike to escape his car? Why didn't he just stay inside the house? Then, Sam just happens to run into the hottie, and even more unbelievably, she, for some unmotivated reason, follows him when he leaves. Why? She's not acting in accordance to her goals and needs, probably because she doesn't have any that are obvious, other than to look hot. The reason she gets up and leaves is because she has to be in the rest of the movie, and the filmmakers whispered in her ear, "Market research shows that teenage boys want to see hot girls in action movies, so go follow Sam." Okay, and here's where having more than a 5th grade education is a curse, because now the next question becomes, why the did Barricade and Frenzy show up all of a sudden? If the Decepticons showed up at Sam's house, I could believe they got information from that computer data they stole. If they had shown up at the police station, I could believe that they intercepted police radio communication dealing with Sam's capture. But how the did they know Sam is on a bike in the middle of a street? There's no logical reason for them to show up, other than, you guessed it, the filmmakers set in stone, these are the story tentpole script, which says he has to show up now. So no matter how illogical, teenage boys don't use logic anyways, right? Barricade and Frenzy will show up now. Let's take a deep breath to release our frustrations. And here, as we talked about, is the first live-action battle between Transformers on a big screen. This is going to be f***ing sweet. Bumblebee ejects Sam and the hottie and transforms, just as Barricade is transforming while he's driving, and the two collide. Holy shit. This is too cool. Okay, Michael Bay. All the mistakes from earlier in the movie are forgiven. Cutting away from Blackout when he was first transforming, forgiven. Not showing a close-up of Bumblebee's first transformation at the junkyard, forgiven. This battle is great, and actually nicely shot. Nice close-ups to make us feel like we're right in the middle of the fight, and nice wide shots to show the blow-by-blow action. One criticism here would be that this is where Bumblebee not being able to talk hurts the story. It would have been nice to have had some trash talking going on between these two. This would have established a pre-existing relationship between them. Obviously, this isn't the first time they're meeting. They probably know each other from the battles on Cybertron, which again would have been shown in the already suggested backstory opening battle, and more scenes dedicated to the Decepticons and Autobots strategizing. Or, No. That forgiveness we just gave Michael Bay? Take it back. Why? Because for some reason, it cuts away from the historic first ever live-action battle between two Transformers. And where does it go? To Sam and the hottie fighting with Frenzy. What the Okay, maybe it's going to cut back to the fight. Please cut back. Okay, it's probably not going to cut back. So, why did it cut away? Is there anyone out there who's watching this that would rather see Frenzy fight the humans? I've checked the DVD, and there are no Easter eggs, no secret chapters that have the off-screen fight between Bumblebee and Barricade. At the very least, this scene could have had some parallel editing, showing us both battles progressing, cutting back and forth. But in the lamest move in recent movie memory, the camera stays with the hottie and Sam as they defeat Frenzy. And in the background, Bumblebee stands tall on a hill, as the winner of a battle we never saw. Then, for a brief moment, we do see Barricade defeated and on the ground. I don't know about you, but it sure would have been nice to have seen how Barricade ended up that way. Was there not enough money in the CGI budget to create that fight? Or was there not enough time to finish it with the July 4th holiday release date approaching? I would have rather waited a year to see a fully realized battle instead of an 11th hour college student writing a term paper the night before it's due rush job like this. For me, sitting in the theater watching this, it began to feel like the Christmas I learned Santa wasn't real. It became obvious that Transformers wasn't going to be the greatest sci-fi action movie of all time, and was, instead, a flawed, superficial, product placement-filled semi-disappointment. How is it conceivable that this major sequence was shot in such a poor way? Steven Spielberg was the producer on this film. All Michael Bay needed to do was ask him, "Hey, Steven, how would you film this sequence?" Steven probably would have given him a copy of Jurassic Park and said, "Just go ahead and steal all the camera angles. Replace the dinosaurs with Transformers." I believe Michael Bay hid any prints or dailies from Spielberg until it was too late to make any changes, or showed Steven some early footage and said, "Don't worry, we're working on the rest of the footage. It'll be put in there later." Then Steven started preparing for Indiana Jones 4 and didn't have time to pay attention anymore to Transformers. Take a deep, deep breath. Okay, make sure you're feeling calm, because up next is another cringe-worthy moment. But first, in terms of story progression, Frenzy survives and turns into a copy of the hottie's phone, which kind of doesn't make sense at the moment if you analyze it. Because how does Frenzy know that Barricade lost the fight with Bumblebee? If Barricade had won, wouldn't Frenzy have gone to join him? So there must be a scene missing here where Frenzy learns that Barricade is lost, or he receives a signal from him to leave him behind and somehow go with the humans so he could keep track of them. But again, that would require that the Decepticons talk to each other, which we know was forbidden in the movie for some reason. So, okay, story illogic aside, Frenzy transforms into the phone and tags along for the ride. But ask yourself, does Frenzy tagging along ever come into play over the next half hour? No, it makes no impact. But we'll talk more about that later. First, we have to analyze this next moment, which should be titled on the DVD chapters list as Transformers Car Commercial, because not only is it a blatant car commercial, it doesn't even try to hide it. It even uses the exact same music from the real commercials. Most importantly, it makes no sense. Because, what's the first thing you would do after defeating a mortal enemy and transporting 2 humans to your leader so you could find the only thing that could save your homeworld? You'd give a shit what a shallow Earth hottie had to say about you, and you'd stop to take time and transform into a newer model. Take a breath. How does Bumblebee know there aren't any other Decepticons on their trail? He doesn't, but the filmmakers do, and they also know it's time to get paid. With a cynical, the audience will get a nice wink-wink laugh at this moment advertisement that stops the story for a couple of minutes. Take a breath. And what are the chances that the new Chevy Camaro would be driving a few cars behind them at just that moment? Take a breath. It's at this point you have to wonder, is Transformers being made to satisfy the demand of a legion of loyal fans giving them their $10 worth, or is it here because the audience is guaranteed to be there, so let's try to sell as much to them as we can while we have them in the seats? Take a breath. So after that story-pausing moment, it gets back on track to the meeting with the Autobots. It also would have been nice if Bumblebee would have received a message from Optimus that Sam and the hottie and we the audience could have overheard. But whatever, we'll just accept that they arrive and Bumblebee knows where to go. And of course, the Autobots have to arrive in the most spectacular way imaginable. Not on a bigger spaceship like in the cartoon that could have given them a chance to be a little bit covert at least. No, they have to crash Armageddon meteor style. It's almost like these were some leftover shots from that movie and the studio didn't want to let them go to waste. Understand, the visuals look great. I've rewatched this like 20 times. It's really well done. But when I think about an alien species landing on a planet where their mortal enemies are waiting for them, probably with enough technology to track them coming into orbit, the choice method of landing on that planet is of course in the most noticeable way. At least they weren't riding nuclear bombs that exploded into mushroom clouds that form the phrase, Autobots in the house. Then it focuses on some man-on-the-street reactions. The two most noticeable being the teenager with a video camera who says things like, "This is 100 times cooler than Armageddon," and, "'cause he's so boned." Is that really a phrase? If it is, please stop saying it. Then you get the little girl who has the Transformer tower over her coming out of the pool, and she wonders if he's the Tooth Fairy. Aw, that's so cute. Insert puking sound here. This all leads to a hair stands up on the back of your neck scene where Sam and the Hottie meet all of the Autobots, including, of course, Optimus Prime. Even though the movie is half over, and in our alternate rewrites, this should have taken place about 30 minutes ago, it's still wet yourself cool. Here in the alley, after we've seen all the Transformers arrive and choose car designs to disguise themselves as, they all come together. Again, this is a great moment. You can feel the goosebumps tingle as Optimus speaks and everyone introduces themselves. A moment like this allows the audience to bond with the characters, and whenever they're involved in future scenes, we feel a connection because we're no longer strangers. As mentioned before, a scene like this should have existed for the Decepticons. Obviously, it wouldn't have been them just standing around introducing themselves, but just a chance to see them interacting with each other. Like in Star Wars, when we see Darth and the Emperor discussing their plans, or Darth and the fleet commanders strategizing. It needs to cut to the opposition, cut to that rival horse on the racetrack, to that other train heading full steam towards the main character, promising that collision of drama. Like the yin and yang, there is a movie balance when the hero has an enemy, especially a strong and smart enemy that the audience believes can actually have a chance at winning. So far, this moment has been great, filmed really well. The camera has focused on Optimus a lot, as it should. He's the character we've all been waiting for, and he's been given a great introduction. We also meet Jazz, Ironhide, and Ratchet, who have their own distinctive personalities and ways of speaking, which we learn they adapted into English via the World Wide Web. And finally, 70 minutes into the movie, the main character learns about the Allspark, Megatron, and the Cybertron Wars. Again, 70 minutes. To put it in perspective, when did Morpheus tell Neo about the Matrix? Or when did Gandalf tell Frodo about the ring? Or when did Luke realize he had to go rescue Princess Leia? No later than 30 or 40 minutes into each of those movies. That's why in our alternate ongoing rewrite of Transformers, this scene with Optimus and the Autobots should have taken place at least 30 minutes ago. Just take a moment and try to remember when you first watched this scene. Do you recall thinking, "Finally, now the action is going to start"? Or maybe you said, "Great, now it's going to start moving faster." And when you ask what this scene does in terms of screenplay structure, the answer is it completes the setup, which signals the end of the first act and the beginning of the second, which in Screenwriting 101 means the main character and the opponent wage a non-stop dramatic struggle to reach their goals, which usually are the same, and therefore mutually exclusive. In this case, only one side can have the Allspark. Another sign that the setup, or Act 1, is not yet complete until this moment is that Optimus gives us the backstory again. Why? Because Sam hasn't heard it yet, and it's usually a good idea to have the main character know why he's pursuing the objective. If we peek into our Screenwriting 101 textbook again, it teaches that the audience should always learn information at the same time the main character does. Just like Neo learned about the Matrix, just like Luke learned about his father and the Force, just like Frodo learned about the ring. Transformers waits over an hour to tell the main character something the audience already knows from the opening credits. And as a result, we sit restless in our seats waiting for the main character to catch up to our knowledge, when it's the reverse that should be true. We should be equal or a little behind the main character's awareness of the movie. This way, we're never bored and are always engaged. Remember, the main character is the person we identify with, who we take cinematic journeys with. And like any journey, you want to be walking side by side on the road with that person, instead of walking faster and being ahead of them, always turning around and saying, "Come on, hurry up." So even though this backstory is a way of catching the main character up to the audience, we should give the filmmakers some credit here. At least this time, the backstory was visualized, and it makes you say, "Holy that looks f***ing awesome," as you watch it. But once that visual awe has subsided after seeing it on DVD 30 times, you start to realize that it would have worked better earlier, and the voiceover at the beginning could have been replaced with this. It could have even included a little more story. This flashback should have been a full sequence in which Optimus and the Autobots are fighting Megatron and the Decepticons. Maybe the Decepticons are winning, and Optimus sends the cube into outer space. You could have had a great fight between Optimus and Megatron, establishing their relationship and setting up emotional impact for their later battle on Earth. Then, here, Megatron could have gone off into space after the cube. We also get the extended flashback of Sam's grandfather finding Megatron, which is cool. It looks great, and it actually makes sense, even though the whole thing with a map lasered on a pair of glasses is sort of okay, like, we'll accept it and go with it. I mean, come on. He accidentally just happens to activate Megatron's navigation system by touching what looks like a fingertip. Fine, whatever. By now it's apparent that the live-action movie has just as many illogical moments as the original cartoon. Is it whiny and nitpicky to demand a higher level of execution? Or was this adaptation of Transformers so accurate that they purposely incorporated the cartoon's illogical qualities? I'd love to believe that, but more likely the truth is that story logic was low on the priority list. I mean, when you watch Jurassic Park, The Matrix, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, or Terminator, don't those movies at least try to have a believable logic system? Don't they try to believably motivate characters? Doesn't their presentation of the story's physics seem to make a little more sense, with fewer obvious flaws? So after Sam finds out about the backstory, it cuts to the first storyline, with the surviving soldiers on a plane being transported for debriefing, which merges them with the third storyline, the Pentagon. This scene on the plane reveals one thing: Sabot rounds hurt the robots. Also, Scorponok's tail is in this scene. Why didn't the movie take this moment to resolve Scorponok for us? Why is it still moving? Maybe he's controlling the tail. Maybe he's using it to monitor the conversation aboard the plane and sending that signal to Starscream. Anything would have been better than burying him in the sand and forgetting about him, leaving us to wonder in the back of our minds what happened to him in the end. Then it cuts to Hottie number 2, aka Blonde Hottie, with the comedic relief hacker sidekick about to be interrogated. This is a warning sign that even though the movie should be picking up speed, moving faster towards the objective and the conflict, it continues to stall. Because what happens here? Comedy. Again, it's funny. The donuts, the buildup of what Anthony Anderson says he's going to do, and then the payoff of what he actually does. It's real funny. But aside from that, what does it add to the momentum of the bigger story? It reveals that the Pentagon should have listened to what the blonde hottie had to say. Well, shouldn't that have happened in the first place? Shouldn't they have just told her, do what you need to do and tell us the minute you find something out? No, that would have been too straightforward and caused the movie to focus on the story more. So instead, we have a sequence of her adventure to break the code that's basically a detour that's merging back here with the main story, when she says, "I need to talk to the Secretary of Defense." Now it cuts back to the Autobots Sam and Hottie number 1, aka Brunette Hottie, going to Sam's house to get the glasses. Again, it's not ideal screenplay structure that it took 72 minutes for the main character to start going after the objective, but at least it's finally happening. One question here is, isn't Frenzy still in Hottie number one's purse? If he is, doesn't that mean that he just sat in her purse, quietly, and witnessed the meeting with the Autobots? Technically he's a spy, right? So shouldn't he have been, spying? Shouldn't we have seen him communicate back to Decepticon headquarters that the humans have made contact with the Autobots? Oh, that's right. No Decepticon scenes are allowed in this movie for some reason. But, in our alternate rewrite, we can imagine that Frenzy would have contacted Starscream and told him what happened. We would have seen the Decepticons strategize, would have understood their point of view more. Remember, the bad guy, or opponent in a movie, doesn't think they're bad. They think they're doing the right thing according to their beliefs. So, it would have added a little more complexity to the Decepticon characters to see them interacting. And when the two sides fought, we would know what's at stake for both of them. So maybe there was a missing shot where Hottie number one turned off her phone, and because Frenzy transformed into such an accurate copy of a phone, he made the off button on the phone his power off button too. It must be the case, because it sure seems like Frenzy is asleep during this whole sequence. What else could the explanation be? He knows the enemy's location, he knows where the glasses are, and he never does anything about it. And that inactivity of the opposing force in this movie becomes obvious here in this sequence. Sam, Hottie 1, Optimus, and the Autobots have gone to Sam's house to get the glasses. Great. They want to get the Allspark as soon as possible because the Decepticons might be there first, in theory. The major problem here is that since there's no Decepticon storyline, and we don't know what their plans are, or if they know anything about the Autobots' progress towards getting the glasses, there's no threat. There's never any cutting to that other horse in the race, that other train on the track. And this makes Optimus's dialogue here seem forced. A few times he tells Sam to hurry, to get the glasses now, to get them fast. Why? Optimus needs to chill out. Frenzy is asleep, and there's no Decepticons anywhere. So why is he freaking out? There's no need to worry about conflict at this moment, because none has been set up. This sequence is similar to the one in The Matrix, where Neo, Morpheus, and the rest of the gang are in a house, trapped, and it cuts to the agents finding out where they are. Then Agent Smith and the rest of his minions show up, and conflict happens right away. Or the sequence in Terminator 2, when John, Sarah, Miles, and Arnold blow up Cyberdyne Systems. The T-1000 hears about it on the police radio and shows up minutes later. Or in Star Wars, when Luke, Han, and Chewie are detected trying to break Leia out of her cell and are forced into the garbage disposal. The opponents always need to find out what the main character or characters are up to and always try to stop them. Because this is missing in Transformers, there is no tension during this sequence. There's no drama here. There's only what? Yes, you guessed it. C-O-M-E-D-Y. Why is this happening? Because the conflict of the main story, the battle for the Allspark, is non-existent. So what happens? Laughs and hijinks have to fill the empty story space. This is why you get Mojo peeing on a robot foot, Optimus saying the cringe-worthy "my bad," and Sam's mom awkwardly talking about masturbation or Sam's happy time. Which is funny. It's great comedy, but it's the right hand distracting us from what the left hand is doing, or in this case, what the left hand isn't doing. And that should be moving the story forward through the conflict created by opposing forces, in this case, the main character and the opposition. One of my favorite movies is True Lies, made by one of my favorite writer-directors, James Cameron. As much as I like it, it also commits a movie crime just like the one we're watching here, detouring off the path of the main story and going off on a comedy side trip. You might remember Arnold Schwarzenegger is a secret agent hunting a terrorist, while at the same time his marriage is suffering, and he thinks his wife is cheating on him. So, towards the middle of the movie, he stops pursuing the terrorists and decides to try to fix his marriage for like 30 minutes. It's a lot of fun, and so well done that you almost forget that, wait a minute, this is an action movie about hunting a terrorist. So, it happens to the best of them. Transformers is doing the same thing here, and doing it well. The Transformers shake the ground, the parents think it's an earthquake, and later when they look in the backyard, which we all know Sam's dad is very passionate about, it looks like an earthquake destroyed it. Nicely played. But, ultimately, it compromises the Autobots' characters, turning them into buffoons, and compromises story logic. Shouldn't they have just waited on the street, parked quietly so no one would notice them? There's no reason for them to transform and slink around the house. This sequence should have been Sam goes in, has a little bit of interaction with his parents, gets the glasses, and leaves. Or, if you want it similar to the way it already is, one important element should have been added: the Decepticons. This is where they need to show up. Frenzy, as mentioned before, should call them, and there should be a fight, a big battle. Yes, Starscream, Barricade, Devastator, all of them should have been here. That would have transformed this sequence. Inside, Sam and Hottie 1, along with his parents, would have thought there was an earthquake going on, while outside, a hardcore CGI Transformers fight would be storming. We'd get their characters interacting, and more relationships would be revealed. And why not have the Decepticons win? This would make it more difficult for our main characters. Again, we only feel tense if it's believable that the opponent might win. The Decepticons could go off to get Megatron and the Allspark first, having a head start, which would be fine, because Sector 7 could show up and then take Sam and the Autobots right to the location, and they would be on the Decepticons' trail. But that's in our alternate rewrite. Here, Sector 7 just shows up, just out of the blue. Why? Because the filmmaker's instincts are smart enough to know that there needs to be some opposition during this sequence. Too bad they didn't remember that the opposition should come from the main opponents, the Decepticons, not some poor substitutes. Which is what these wannabe Men in Black are. They're not a bad idea. If Megatron had been discovered many years ago, confirming the existence of an alien race, then no doubt the government would have established this type of organization. But their presence here is unexpected and sudden. They should have been introduced earlier. John Turturro, who we all know and love from various Coen brother films, has a great screen presence, and seems to be a good choice for the leader of this covert government group. Unfortunately, he plays it a little buffoonish, and we end up feeling sorry for him instead of fearing him. You could imagine in high school, he was the one that was always picked on, so when he grew up, he decided to achieve a position of power to compensate for it. Why wasn't he in the background of various scenes earlier? Maybe when the Secretary of Defense had that meeting that Hottie number 2 interrupted, he could have been there observing. Or when Frenzy hacked Air Force One and there was that giant computer center, he should have been there too. That's all we would have needed. A close-up shot of his menacing grin, and we would have been hooked. We would start asking, who is that? What's his role in the story? And then when he shows up here, boom, we have our answer. With Sam and Hottie 1 captured, the Men in Black are en route to take them back to headquarters. And it's here a major revelation of the Hottie's backstory occurs. Her father is a petty criminal, and she gained all that useful engine knowledge stealing cars with him. Not bad. That'll actually work. But the movie doesn't take it any deeper. Remember, the hero gets the journey they're ready for, and in the best movies, every character is a well-rounded, three-dimensional person. Kind of like the TV series Lost. Everyone has a backstory. Everyone has their own issues to work out. Everyone is a deep well of memories, desires, and emotions. So if Hottie 1 has some daddy issues that revolve around cars, it seems that being involved in a situation dealing with a lot of cars that happen to be transforming robots would be the perfect opportunity to face her demons and come out the other end a new person. But that's asking too much from a CGI comedy action movie about transforming robots, right? And here, the Autobots intervene to rescue Sam and the Hottie. With the Decepticons waiting for their action cue from the filmmakers later in the movie, our heroes have to fight other humans in the meantime. And again, the visuals look amazing. The low-angle shot of Optimus? Great. The Autobots swinging through the bridge in the background? Great. The magnetized pull of the guns out of the humans' hands? Great. And then, story logic rears its head again. Optimus makes note that Turturro isn't scared or surprised to see him. Turturro answers that there are Sector 7 protocols. Optimus tells him to get out of the car. Then Sam and Hottie 1 embarrass him by tying him to a pole in his underwear. Wow, that's some great story development. Oh yeah, and Bumblebee lubricates Turturro. Why? Yes, it's funny again, but come on, why do this? And what was he urinating? Gas? Water? If they run on Energon, why have any liquid at all? The bigger logic question in this moment is that for some reason, they catch the Men in Black, the people who can take them to the Allspark, but for some reason, they don't interrogate them. They don't initiate any conflict. Did anyone else think that when Optimus raised the issue as to why Turturro wasn't surprised to see transforming robots, that he was going to interrogate him? If Ratchet could detect that Sam wanted to mate with Hottie 1, wouldn't he be able to detect the anxiety in Turturro, that he was hiding something? Or, you don't even need that, because Turturro says, "I'm not allowed to talk to you." Well, when you're at war, do you know what they do to POWs that don't talk? They make them talk. So why didn't Jazz use some of that dirty, hairy, tough guy attitude and get some answers? Our Screenwriting 101 textbooks tell us that all characters have objectives, and they should be pursuing those objectives at all times. So why isn't Optimus taking this opportunity to get some answers from the MIBs? His objective is the Allspark. Doesn't he suspect these guys might know something about it? He just points out that Turturro wasn't scared, and then backs away so Bumblebee can make a pee-pee joke, and Sam and Hottie 1 can talk some trash. Sam comes close to interrogating them when he asks, "Where's Sector 7? I want some answers." But then Turturro responds, "Wouldn't you like to know?" Sam's reaction should have been, "Yes, I do, and the Transformers are going to beat the shit out of you until you tell me." But instead, he makes him take off his clothes. Let's add that idea of the interrogation to our alternate rewrite. As for what's here in front of us, it's a scene that goes for jokes again and doesn't add anything to the story for the moment. And, just like the old 1960s Batman TV series, when the bad guy sets up an elaborate trap with Batman in it, he leaves the room so Batman can somehow escape. Same thing here, except it's reversed. For some lame reason, the good guys leave the bad guys tied up, and minutes later, they're being chased by them again. And how did Sector 7 outwit the Transformers? By putting a cell phone on speaker. Holy shit. Genius. Wouldn't one of the Transformers have picked up on that signal? Aren't they technologically advanced enough to monitor those frequencies? I guess not, 'cause in just moments, the chase is on. And somehow, a bunch of helicopters and SUVs managed to track down super advanced alien robots. This would have been a great moment to reveal a little reverse-engineered technology from Megatron that allows the MIBs to track the Autobots, or maybe some weapons that can neutralize them. But no, there's none of that. Who needs advanced technology when you have a gun that shoots out a big net? Let's mention a pretty interesting moment between Sam and Hottie 1. A little emotional tension. Sam seems angry that she turned out to be a criminal. He jabs her with a sarcastic comment as she takes the cuffs off of him. Then she shoots back by asking him when he had to sacrifice anything in his perfect life. This is a nice moment, with a lot of promise, but unfortunately it doesn't continue. It would have been great if they had kept up this battle till the end of the movie. But I guess there's no time to keep track of that kind of stuff when you've got action. And again, the visuals look amazing. Optimus running from the helicopter, very cool. Any chance that that helicopter is Blackout? Or another Decepticon? Didn't think so. So Optimus hides under the bridge and everything is fine. Sam and Hottie 1 have a great seat and are totally stable until, because there's need for some tension at this moment, for some reason, They're jarred loose and they fall. Optimus tries to catch them and misses. But don't worry, because out of the blue, for some reason, Bumblebee is there to save the day. Wouldn't it have been better if a missile blast or some kind of aggressive action taken by the humans would have jarred Optimus loose so the kids would have fallen? Probably, but who cares? There's Transformer action going on. So the glasses are jarred loose and they hit the pavement without breaking. And luckily, they're far enough off to the side so they don't get damaged during the melee when the humans capture Bumblebee. Which brings us to a classic King Kong moment. Violent humans scared of the beast or creature they don't understand, and the one human it has a connection with reaching out to protect it. And it works. We really feel sad when Bumblebee is captured, and we like and admire Sam more for trying to do something about it. Totoro shows up again with a bulletproof vest over his Superman Sector 7 shirt, which is a little far-fetched, but still a funny little detail, and it's off to headquarters for the kids and Bumblebee. Then it cuts to Optimus, picking up the glasses as Jazz protests not trying to rescue them. Optimus answers back that they can't free Bumblebee without harming the humans. Okay, it's great that Optimus doesn't want to injure any humans, but didn't he just rescue Sam and Hottie 1 from the MIBs a second ago? Nobody was hurt, and Optimus stopped the SUV while it was moving, causing the windows to shatter and the car to spin out. He didn't seem to care too much about human injury back then. There are moments during the viewing of any movie that set off the bullshit alarm, such as a character saying or doing something not because it makes sense, but because the script is forcing it to be that way. Just like this. Of course the Autobots can free Bumblebee and the kids. Jazz just needs to activate his magnetic gun vacuum again, and defenseless MIBs would give up without a fight. The real reason Optimus doesn't want to rescue them is because the story has been set in stone. The tent poles are immovable. And this has to be the part where the kids go to the Hoover Dam and find out the truth. Ideally, the characters should achieve their goals through conflict, by battling to get to the truth. Here, however, the characters aren't allowed to create these opportunities. They're just forced upon them when the script requires it. Then it cuts back to the Pentagon, where the Decepticon spider virus has wiped out all planetary communications. It's a very cool idea that works well. Again, wish we could have seen the Decepticons plan this, but okay, we can stay in the dark as to their motivations and just accept it. Next, the Sector 7 guy shows up and explains the truth about the enemy that they're facing. Isn't it a little late to do that? Why wasn't he here after the attack on the base, like 60 minutes ago? But first, just like Hottie number 2 earlier, the Secretary of Defense doesn't listen right away to the person who has the answers. Doesn't the president know about Sector 7? Isn't he the one that sent this guy here? So, why wouldn't the president have called the secretary and told him, "Hey, listen up. My guy with the briefcase is coming down to see you. Listen to what he has to say." But that never happens, and instead, we get another minute of people scrambling to understand what's going on, while the person with the answers is sitting right in front of them. Then, he reveals the recording of the Beagle 2 Mars rover, which reveals that the same robot who attacked the base was also on Mars. What? What the f*** is that supposed to mean? Okay, so does that mean the Decepticons have a base on Mars? Why else would Blackout be there? This footage creates confusion. Yes, it's cool that the movie took a real-life element and twisted it to fit in its fictional world, but this is just a headache moment. It raises a ton of questions and implications that are never addressed. Oh, and the moment this Dr. Phil wannabe shows the secretary the 2 pictures of the Mars suspect, that's straight out of Terminator 2, when the cops show Sarah Connor the pictures of Arnold from past and present. In this moment with the 2 pictures, Dr. Phil says, "This is the picture the special ops team was able to retrieve from the base attack." Wait, didn't the binoculars get damaged? So how did they get this picture? And if not, then this is the big payoff for all that fuss and muss dealing with the binoculars and the Scorponok battle, so they could have a side-by-side comparison, which leads to what? The secretary finally listening to someone, because now, with 40 minutes left in the movie, the action is finally going to start, and he doesn't have to help delay the story any longer. So we learn a coordinated attack is coming from the Decepticons, and that's why they've shut down all human communications. That's pretty cool. Great story development. Now, all three storylines merge here. The soldiers, the Pentagon, Hottie 2 and the hacker, and Sam and Hottie 1. They all head for the Hoover Dam. Then it shows the Autobots climbing the walls of some hillside Taj Mahal wannabe, where Optimus shines a laser into the glasses and the map is revealed. The Allspark is 230 miles away. Let's not bother wondering why the Autobots chose this location to analyze the glasses. At least they're moving towards the objective and are about to initiate some conflict. But first, my favorite line, in a bad way, comes from Ratchet. He says, "I sense the Decepticons are getting ready to mobilize." What? Really? Since when can Ratchet sense the Decepticons? If that's the case, why couldn't he sense Frenzy was in Hottie 1's purse? Why didn't he sense that there weren't any Decepticons near Sam's house earlier? This way, he could have told Optimus, "Don't worry, no Decepticons anywhere, so chill out. We can hang here on the street while Sam and Hottie 1 go inside to get the glasses." What Ratchet is sensing here is that the movie has a major structural flaw. It never shows the Decepticons. And this dialogue is designed to compensate for that, especially at this moment when all roads are leading to the Hoover Dam. The horses have made the final turn and the finish line is visible in the distance. This scene where the Autobots gather and talk with each other is f***ing awesome. But what also needs to happen is a cut to a parallel scene where the Decepticons are doing the same thing, strategizing about the Hoover Dam and interacting, revealing personality and relationships. Ratchet's comment is an example of a screenwriting 101 no-no, saying instead of showing. Which is better? An Autobot using the robot force, getting all Yoda on us and sensing the Decepticons, or an actual scene with them? The whole sensing comment is so out of left field and raises 100 other questions that if asked and answered, would plunge the movie into a page 1 rewrite. So let's not go there. Let's go to another line of dialogue. They must know it's here as well. I guess they must know if they're mobilizing, but it would have been great to see how the Decepticons found out. Thanks for telling us, Nostradamus. Then the movie gets deep for a moment. Optimus talks about how the humans are a primitive race, similar to the Transformers when they were just starting out, and how they deserve a chance to evolve. It's nice that this moment is here. It adds a dash of depth to what so far has been a popcorn-light story. The only problem is that this seems so, oh by the way, thrown in. When well done, science fiction is an exploration of the human situation, where philosophical questions are debated via dramatized visualization. Star Wars is a great example, with multiple philosophical themes. The spirituality of the Force, good versus evil, technology versus nature. These same issues echo in The Matrix and are taken even deeper with the exploration of the nature of reality itself. Transformers seems ripe for including these types of issues. Man versus machine, good versus evil, war versus peace, control versus freedom. But it never does. It just skims the surface, and this moment is the only time it becomes a factor. Why couldn't it have been a constant theme from the beginning? Probably because Megatron, the character that wants to wipe out all humans, is asleep for over half the movie. It's hard to have a debate when no one is standing at the other podium to argue the other point. Just like Darth Vader argued in Star Wars, just like Agent Smith argued in The Matrix, and just like the Green Goblin argued in Spider-Man. Then Optimus reveals what they have to do, why, and what's at stake. Also, if there's no other way to get the cube, it must be put into his chest, which will destroy it and him in the process. And this is why we all love Optimus, now and 20 years ago, because he's the ideal leader. He backs up his talk and isn't afraid to put his life on the line for what's right. In our alternate rewrite, this scene should have happened earlier, like 30 or 40 minutes ago, when, in our alternate rewrite, they first arrive. This way, we know earlier what the Autobots want, what's at stake, and why they want it. And of course, we hear the classic line, "Autobots roll out." Now that got some major cheers in the theater. The entire Autobot scene is proof that having just the robots interact with each other can be very engaging. It works. So, for the sequel, again, this should be done more, for both Autobot and Decepticon. Oh, and remember Frenzy? You know, he's been asleep in the purse for like 30 minutes. He finally wakes up, and is now becoming a factor. We have our next, holy shit, this is f***ing awesome moment. The revelation of Megatron. Finally. And let's give the filmmakers some credit. This looks great. It's really well done. So kudos to the CGI peeps, and for the direction, which films this perfectly. A nice long shot so we can see all of Megatron. A great reaction shot of the humans walking into the room, beholding him for the first time. So overall, great job. Once again, the visuals make us wet ourselves. For the sequel, theaters might consider handing out Depends to the audience members. But let's talk more story. Ask yourself, honestly, didn't you want Megatron in the movie earlier? We're at about 1 hour and 40 minutes into the movie, and Megatron, the nemesis of Optimus Prime, the leader of the Decepticons, the head bad guy, has finally made his first official appearance, not counting the flashback. And he's frozen. He's not even doing anything yet. Wouldn't it have made for a better, more thrilling, high-octane action movie if he had been active about an hour ago? Probably. But that's in our alternate rewrite. Here we get the background of how he was found, how Sam's great-great-great-grandfather made one of the greatest discoveries in the history of humankind, and that every major technological advancement in the 20th century was created by studying him. Then Sam reveals the Decepticons' objective, which we should have heard from the Decepticons themselves. Megatron wants the cube so he can transform Earth's technology and take over the universe. It all makes sense now. 1 hour and 40 minutes into a 2 hour and 20-minute movie. Then it cuts to Frenzy, finally becoming a factor. He sends a message out. The Allspark is located. Wait. Does that mean that Ratchet not only has the powers of the Force, where he's able to sense the enemy, but also has psychic powers, where he can see the future? Because now, 5 minutes after he revealed his sensing feelings, the Decepticons are mobilizing. And it finally cuts to Starscream, who, like Megatron, we wanted to see in the movie earlier. Starscream radios to the other Decepticons to rendezvous at the Allspark's location. And as it cuts to shots of the other Decepticons, it becomes apparent that all they've been doing for the entire movie is sitting around waiting for orders. Devastator the tank has been chilling out at the tank yard, Starscream has been sitting on a runway, Barricade has been driving really fast, I guess because he's a cop car, and Bone Crusher has been waiting at a parking lot. And when they speak to each other, it's so formal. Barricade reporting, Bone Crusher rolling. If these characters have known each other for hundreds of years and been in battles together, would they be so formal with each other? Wouldn't they talk with each other the way we all talk with our friends? Imagine if this was a cell phone call with you and your peeps. How would you all respond if someone said, "Let's meet at the movie theater"? You would all probably say something like, "I'm on the way, dude." Or, "See you in a few minutes, bro." And of course, "For shizzle my nizzle." Now, because there were no earlier scenes with all of the Decepticons, they have to talk like it's the first time they're meeting each other, because it's the first time we, the audience, are meeting most of them. The filmmakers realize this, and also give us subtitles of the characters' names, because if they didn't, we'd be asking, who the is that tank? What's with that construction crane? Also, does it bother anyone else that at 1 hour and 45 minutes into the movie, we finally meet all the Decepticons and have them clearly identified? Did anyone else feel that as Blackout said, "All hail Megatron," Starscream would have said something sarcastic? Doesn't Starscream hate Megatron and want to destroy him? Doesn't Starscream want to be the new Decepticon leader? He did in the cartoon, so why didn't that get incorporated into this adaptation? In our alternate rewrite, it would have added some twists and turns to the story. Maybe there could have been a scene where Starscream works with Sam and the Autobots to destroy Megatron. Not because he's joining them, but because the enemy of my enemy is my ally. But again, this could have only worked if there had been more scenes with the Decepticons. At minimum, there should have been a base. How about on Mars? Just like that Dr. Phil scene implied with the Mars rover footage. It's already been set up, so why not pay it off? Or, if the travel time from Mars to Earth would logically take too long, then at least have an Earth base. This would be more believable than having them scattered around in different locations waiting for a call from dispatch, like cops at a donut shop. And just to interject on a side note, let's just say that the Transformers action that's been going on for the last minute or so is great. Starscream's transformation, crazy cool. Megatron defrosting, it rocks. The non-stop climax of the movie is about to begin. So while Megatron is freed and Frenzy battles the humans, let's discuss an important setup that just occurred. The revelation of the Allspark's creative powers for transforming dead technology into living robots. Does anyone else think this was a missed opportunity? Let's compare it to another Steven Spielberg produced movie, 1984's Gremlins. What were the rules established in Gremlins? Number 1, don't feed them after midnight. Number 2, don't get them wet. And number 3, don't expose them to bright light. Now, as soon as those rules are stated, what do we know is going to happen? One by one, they're going to be broken. So Gizmo gets wet, and what happens? Another Gizmo is made, but he's called Spike, because he has a mohawk. Then, Spike eats after midnight, turning him into a gremlin. Having one gremlin is just fine. In many ways, Gizmo is like Optimus and Spike is like Megatron. A battle between just the two of them would be adequate. But this is a movie. So to make it more exciting, and to make it harder for the main character to win, in the case of Gremlins, you have to ask, what would be the worst thing that could happen? Probably Spike getting wet. Director Joe Dante, writer Chris Columbus, and producer Steven Spielberg wanted moviegoers to get their money's worth. So what did they decide? They made it so Spike would get wet and make another gremlin. But not just a little wet, soaked. He jumps into a huge swimming pool, making hundreds, if not thousands, of evil little copies of himself. Now it's going to be an adventure to see one little furball Gizmo defeat an army of gremlins. Shouldn't the same thing have happened here? One Optimus versus 100 Megatrons? What's Megatron's goal? To use the Allspark to transform Earth's technology into an army, so he can take over the universe. Wouldn't it have made it harder for Sam and the Autobots if Megatron had gotten the Allspark and started building his army? This scene with the little phone monster in the box is such a tease, such a setup, so why not go with it? We want that Gremlins-like moment when Megatron, like Spike, jumps in the pool, where he takes the Allspark and goes ape transforming everything. This way, the Autobots would be outmatched, and we would be shivering in tension at the edge of our seats, thinking how the are they going to get out of this one? And better yet, Megatron would have gotten the Allspark only after defeating Optimus here at the Hoover Dam. For the moment, yes, another battle with Optimus, which would have built upon our suggested opening fight, which would set up the ultimate battle at the end, where Optimus would now consider putting the Allspark in his chest because it's obvious Megatron can't be talked out of his megalomaniacal goals, and because we could actually see the destructive power of the cube in creating all these hundreds of Decepticons. we would truly understand why Optimus would consider such a drastic action as heroic suicide. And while we're speaking of the Allspark, why can it only create evil, angry robots? Didn't the Allspark create the Autobots too? So why, every time it touches technology, does it create pissed-off Transformers? Wish that would have been explained. Now, back to the action at hand. Bumblebee is freed, and there's a great emotional moment between him and Sam. Then Bumblebee transforms the Allspark from supersized to super tiny. Let's not bother with the logic questions in physics here. The answer will be mass shifting. The Transformers possess mass shifting technology, and that's why size ultimately doesn't matter. But, just to make one observation, the cube is huge at first because it makes for a great iconic movie image. So there's something the audience can be in awe of. It's then made small because the main character, Sam, has to be the one to protect it, because that's what the script says. So somehow, it has to be made small enough for him to carry. This is very much like Frodo being entrusted with the ring. It's too bad Sam didn't have a character flaw of some kind, so that this moment, being entrusted with something that could destroy worlds, would be his final step, helping him cross over to becoming a new person. It's like in Aliens, when Ripley has to face the alien queen, the symbolic and actual cause of her fears that she must now face and erase. Or when Luke must defeat Darth to become a true Jedi. Or when Danielson faces the school bully in the ring at the end of Karate Kid. What is that fear, that obstacle, mental or physical, that Sam must overcome to be transformed? Is anyone else tired of Frenzy? It seems like he's here just to occupy the humans' time. I guess his objective is to stop the humans from communicating with the outside world, which seems fine. But couldn't Starscream have done that by launching a missile? Or maybe a laser pulse blast from Megatron? That would have wiped out their chances of communicating. Whatever. So the humans will be dealing with Frenzy for the next few minutes. We then go to, arguably the best action sequence of the movie. Bone Crusher versus Optimus. Again, the first 50 times you watch this, it just blows your mind. Great angles, acrobatic fighting, transforming while driving 70 miles per hour, Bone Crusher smashing through a bus. The moment with the kid and his mom, very Spielbergy. It's everything a Transformers battle should be. Everything we've been waiting for. Except, it could be a little bit longer. It lasts like a minute. Don't get me wrong. Optimus pulling out some laser sword and stabbing Bone Crusher through the jaw was a surprise, revealing a badass warrior side we haven't seen before. But if you blinked, you missed it. So did they not have enough money in the budget for a 5-minute battle? Not enough time to create it before the release date? Or was there no built-up character drama colliding in this scene that warranted a longer fight? Remember movie rule number 32. The less we know the opponent the main character is fighting with, the shorter the fight, and vice versa. The more we know the opponent, the longer the fight. Just think about the stormtroopers in Star Wars. They're nameless and faceless and are killed off in a matter of seconds. But when it comes to Boba Fett or Jabba the Hutt, those fights take a little bit longer, because their relationships have been established with the main characters. An emotional connection has been formed, and longer battles are needed to destroy those deep-seated roots. This is the problem with not establishing characters fully. It hurts their interactions. This should have been like RoboCop fighting Ed 209, John McClane fighting Carl, the long-haired blonde terrorist in the first Die Hard, or Obi-Wan fighting Darth Maul. Here, Bone Crusher doesn't have the same status as the Emperor in Star Wars. He's not Megatron, but he seems to be a cocky badass who thinks he can take Optimus. So why not set that up? Oh right, no Decepticon scenes. In our rewrite, Bone Crusher would have been a self-assured third in command, behind Starscream, who wants Megatron's approval and doesn't like Starscream the same way Starscream doesn't like Megatron. In the scenes of the Decepticons' Earth base, Bone Crusher and Starscream would constantly be getting into it, with Bone Crusher bragging that he could take down Optimus. Maybe back on Cybertron, during the wars, Bone Crusher had that chance, but Starscream stopped him, saving Optimus and backstabbing Bone Crusher because Starscream didn't want him to have the glory. Optimus remembers and knows this, so when he and Bone Crusher meet, there's some backstory between them. Maybe there's even a little bit of trash talking, and it adds some more emotional weight to this scene. Also, it would have been great to have seen Megatron give Bone Crusher the order to go after Prime and take him out. Megatron could have contacted him during that scene with Starscream when he said, "You failed me again." It should have continued with Megatron saying, "I'll give the job to someone who won't fail me," and he calls Bone Crusher right in front of Starscream's face. Would've, could've, should've. In the end, the battle here is a visual masterpiece, but an emotional failure. In the best action movies, the action or fighting is an extension of the character's emotions. Think Braveheart. When William Wallace and his army fight Edward the Longshanks and his army, there's a lot of feeling on the field. It's what's driving the conflict. Maybe the filmmakers should have tried to make Transformers a sci-fi version of Braveheart. Now let's talk about Megatron's awakening. Now of course, Megatron awakening from his cryosleep is CGI at its best. He looks menacing, transforms into an alien jet, but why does he speak English? When he crashed and was frozen, there was no World Wide Web. He never even had any contact with humans, so how does he know the language? Next, wouldn't he want some kind of status report right away? Maybe he'd radio Starscream and say, "Dude, what the f*** going on?" Starscream would respond, "Bro, you just pulled some Rip Van Winkle shit." And Megatron would be updated as to the status of the Cube, Autobots, Cybertron, and the humans. This would have worked better if, just like in our alternate rewrite, he had been released earlier. But as it is now, it's towards the end of the movie, and there's no time for details, only action. So he has to dive right in, which means our brains must censor all logic in order to enjoy this moment. The first thing he says is, "Where's the cube?" I'm sorry, but he wouldn't say that after a Buck Rogers hypersleep. Then he says, "You failed me again, Starscream." This is actually kinda great, because it implies an already established relationship. The only problem is that this is the only scene like this, where the Decepticons have a moment of personal interaction, with close-ups of their faces so you can actually distinguish some emotion. Nicely done, but not done enough. Think of movies where the son is never good enough for his father, or the daughter that can never please her mother. That's what this relationship is. But one moment in one scene isn't enough to impact us for a 2.5-hour movie. It's like the filmmakers knew it should be in there, but got distracted by the cool action and CGI, and ultimately forgot about it. Let's talk about what's going on right now in the movie. This action sequence in the city has been pretty sick. It's what fans have been dreaming about ever since it was confirmed that there would be a live-action Transformers movie. All the storylines have converged, and an all-out battle is ensuing. Bumblebee has lost his legs, and as we know, a number of Decepticons are going to be killed. Well, it's been nice knowing them for like 10 minutes. Again, introduce them earlier, and their deaths might have had some emotional impact. But okay, at least it looks cool. Coming up, Hottie 1 will get her time to shine when she gets in the truck and starts driving Bumblebee around. And Sam will have his big moment, protecting the cube. Once again, it would have been nice if he had had a character journey to go through, and the Allspark was his ultimate test. But whatever, we'll just go with it. But just for a second, because it's story logic time. Because I don't know about you, but if I was a super powerful, advanced alien transforming robot, and the fate of my world, and possibly the universe, centered on the safety of a metal box, the ideal protector for it would be a teenage boy, just emerging from puberty, that couldn't even make the football team. It's not like I would think of giving it to, say, another robot with super strength, the power to transform into a car or plane, also equipped with powerful weaponry. No, I'd pick the guy with the t-shirt and gym shoes who can't stop thinking about hooking up with Hottie 1. This is like Spider-Man asking Aunt May to protect him from Venom. Or if John Connor, the 13-year-old, was sent to the future to protect the T-800 Arnold Terminator from the T-1000. Or Superman asking Lois Lane to protect him from Lex Luthor. The filmmakers know Sam should be at the center of this important moment, but can't find a way for it to make sense. Even in Lord of the Rings, they at least try to explain why a helpless hobbit has to be the one to carry the ring, because the hearts of men are too weak, and they'll be tempted by the ring's power. At least they attempt to give us something here. Maybe Sam's great-great-great-grandfather pushed another Megatron button, and some of his Allspark essence shot into him, and was passed down in the bloodline, and he was prophesized to be the blah-blah-blah something. Anything. At least try. The present moment action here is amazing. The Autobots and Decepticons go at it pretty good. In the theater, this is where I felt relieved that at least my money didn't go to waste. There are a ton of nice angles here, especially the one where Jazz spins over a woman on the ground in slow-mo and shoots his gun simultaneously. Before talking about Sam running with the cube, let's comment on a few things that have already happened. The battle with Devastator is great, even though that's not really Devastator, because as we all know, the real Devastator was the name of a combined robot made up of 5 Constructicons, one of which was Bone Crusher, but none of which were a tank. Obviously, some liberties were taken with adapting the cartoon, but we're not going to go into that here, except to mention that yes, it would have been nice to have seen a more recognizable Megatron, especially since the design for Optimus was pretty dead on. It's not like they couldn't have done it, for some reason they just decided not to. Next, when Megatron shows up, he starts kicking ass and eventually kills Jazz. The problem is that the camera stays on a wide shot as the two exchange lines. What's the first rule of action movie one-liners? Always make sure you have a close-up of the person saying the one-liner. What's the most famous action movie one-liner ever? I'll be back. And if you remember, it's a nice close-up of the Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator. So when Jazz says, "You want a piece of me?" there needs to be a close-up of him. And when Megatron says, "I'll take 2," there needs to be a close-up of his face. Close-ups add emphasis and impact. Unfortunately, here, we feel like someone overhearing the lines from across the street. To add an emotional element for Jazz's final moments, it would have been nice to have had his thoughts on Megatron earlier. Maybe Megatron killed his family back on Cybertron. He could have been like Inigo Montoya from The Princess Bride, waiting for the opportunity to take his vengeance, and when he came face to face with Megatron again, he could say, "My name is Jazz. You killed my family. Prepare to die." Just something, some personal, emotional reason for Jazz to act all heroic. Maybe Megatron could have taunted him. "Your family begged me to spare their lives." Or something like that. Create a relationship instead of a spectacle. Without this emotional base element, it almost feels like we're watching a giant invisible kid play with his Transformer toys, who's not interested in depth of character, but instead wants the action figures to just attack each other. Now, getting back to Sam running with the cube, the Autobots tell him they will protect him, as he runs to the roof of a very tall building to give the spark to a helicopter. That sounds like a plan orchestrated by Commander Rube Goldberg. Really? Have they noticed Starscream, Megatron, and Blackout can fly, and will probably shoot down that chopper as soon as it has the spark? This is just an excuse to have Megatron pursue Sam in one of the most unbelievable chases in movie history. And Sam does his best Forrest Gump as he runs for blocks on end, horizontally in the streets and vertically on the stairs. Along the way he sprints, ducks, dodges, and leaps, while more amazing CGI action chaotically takes place around him. And when he touches the spark to the car with Hotties 3, 4, and 5, the steering wheel comes to life, alien facehugger style, along with a computer and a Mountain Dew machine. Take a breath. Whatever happens to these Decepticons, by the way? we never see them destroyed. Well, anyways, this moment teases us with that alternate reality version of the movie where Megatron got the Allspark earlier and created an army, Gremlin style. It's so cool to see these things come into life. Just wish there was more of it. Oh, what could have been. Then it cuts to the most unbelievable moment of the movie. Sam running into a building with Megatron literally right behind him and having to use the stairs to get to the top of the building. Was that an optical illusion? Did you see how many flights of stairs there were in that low-angle shot? Remember, Megatron is as tall as 3 of those flights, so he wouldn't even need to break a robot's sweat to catch Sam. This is like a chimpanzee trying to outrun King Kong, or an alligator trying to scurry away from Godzilla. Megatron peeks his head through the floor and swipes at Sam, of course just missing him. Then it cuts away to the humans and Autobots destroying a Decepticon. This sequence is well executed, and again, the effects rock. So while that's going on, let's back up a little to discuss when Optimus arrived a few moments ago. It's wonderfully filmed as he transforms and assumes a battle stance. Megatron sees him and the two finally, at 2 hours and 4 minutes into the movie, have their first fight. Unfortunately, right away, a couple of close-ups are missed here, as Prime says Megatron and Megatron says Prime. Remember, the close-up is the friend of drama and emotion. The wide shot is the ally of action and comedy. We need to capture that emotion with a tight shot, but it's missed. The effects are consistently brilliant again. It's jaw-dropping to see them destroy buildings as they fight, but it's wincingly painful to hear the forced, "humans deserve to live or die" dialogue. This is where not having any previous scenes with these two battling each other hurts the movie. In our alternate version, this is the third battle. First they duked it out in the flashback, then Megatron beat Optimus to possess the cube earlier, and now their final round begins. All through these battles, the reasons they fight would emerge. It's doubtful back on Cybertron they talked about humans, especially in a few minutes, when Megatron is defeated and Optimus calls him brother. Yeah, brother as in relatives. Gee, that seems like a major detail that was kind of just thrown in there at the end. It sure would have been nice if they dealt with that issue while Megatron was still alive. How about when they fought here, instead of this forced dialogue about humans, why not deal with the real issues? Wouldn't Optimus say, "There's still time, brother. I know you're not all evil"? And where have we heard that before? Yep, Star Wars. Luke to Darth. It all boils down to what Optimus's objective is regarding Megatron. Does he want to protect the cube and save his brother too? Then why not allow his dialogue to reflect what should have been Optimus's subtext? Yes, he's a robot and he can actually have subtext, as long as he has emotions and desires that are suppressed. Another suggestion for Transformers 2, Autobots and Decepticons should have subtext, which means they should have a complex inner emotional world that slowly emerges through their outward actions and dialogue. Okay, back to Sam, already on the roof. How long does it take to run up 50 flights of stairs with a 3-story robot chasing after you? About 1 minute. Okay, I'll believe it. After all, like the cop said, Sam is on the mojo. Looks like that stuff is pretty powerful. Oh, no, wait. It's not mojo. It's a script full of story logic bullshit. Sam is under the influence of BS. So he's got his flare, the helicopter shows up, but of course, he can't reach the guy to give him the cube, just a couple of inches away until, guess what? The helicopter is blown up. No one saw that coming, right? Megatron finally shows up, like 30 seconds after Sam has been on the roof. Where was he? In the bathroom taking a huge robot shit? And Hugo Weaving's Mr. Smith voice finally becomes detectable. Sam tells him he's not giving him the cube, and there's a great close-up of Megatron saying, "So unwise." Very well done, but not consistently enough. And for some reason, instead of walking over and taking the box out of Sam's puny little human hands, he goes for the cool visual and destroys the statues, sending Sam falling. Why? Why do this? Because Optimus is there to catch him. Oh, that makes total sense. Send the cube into the hands of the only Autobot powerful enough to defeat you. Genius. CGI galore ensues as Optimus bounces off the buildings to cushion his fall, and Megatron dives down after him and Sam. It doesn't make the most sense, but it looks pretty f***ing amazing. Then there's a point-of-view shot through the window of a car for some reason, as they all hit the ground, and a funny moment with Megatron flicking away a human he deems disgusting, which is funny. And speaking of funny, notice that we haven't mentioned comedy in the last 20 minutes or so. Why? Because the movie is finally focusing on the story, the conflict between two sides that want the same objective. And here is the most incompetent moment of the movie, the abominable lack of visuals of the final Megatron-Optimus battle. To sum it up, Optimus says, "One shall stand, one shall fall," and we don't even see it. What the f***? As the story comes to an end, Optimus and Megatron battle each other, Starscream fights planes in the sky, and Blackout engages the humans. But let's focus most of the discussion here on how badly the Megatron-Optimus battle is filmed, and how much of it isn't filmed, and why. Let's examine what it should have meant in terms of the story's climax by comparing it to other final fights from some classic movies. Luke versus Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi. The T-800 versus the T-1000 in Terminator 2. Ripley versus the Alien Queen in Aliens. Spider-Man versus Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2. Superman versus the three evil supermen and woman in Superman 2. Neo versus Agent Smith in The Matrix and Matrix Revolutions. Rocky versus Apollo in Rocky 1. Rocky versus Drago in Rocky 4. Arnold versus the Predator in Predator. Priests versus the possessing demon in The Exorcist. Michael Myers versus Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween. Freddy versus Nancy in Nightmare on Elm Street. Freddy versus the Dream Master girl, I think her name was Alice. And Jason Voorhees versus the Telekinetic girl. Yes, even Nightmare on Elm Street 4 and Friday the 13th Part 7 filmed each of their final confrontations between the hero and the opponent more competently than the $200 million budgeted Transformers. So what were we expecting? Oh, not too much. Just to actually see it? Not just the first 10 seconds of the fight, then a glimpse of it in the background down the street as the humans fight Blackout. Is that too much to ask? Remember, the greater the rivalry, the more screen time given to this rivalry. Or in this case, the preceding knowledge of the history of the cartoon series. This is Optimus versus Megatron. So what do we get? Go ahead, rewatch it if you want, right now. See how it really is. I don't know about you, but I'm pissed. To review, the fight starts with the dialogue, "It's just you and me, Megatron." Megatron responds, "No, it's just me, Prime." And Optimus says the classic line, "At the end of this day, one shall stand, one shall fall." And Megatron counters, "You still fight for the weak. That is why you lose." The visuals include the camera swirling around Optimus and Megatron in a medium-wide shot as they stand up, but then their heads go off screen so we can't see them. And then it cuts to Sam running in the ditch while Prime says his classic "one shall fall" line. Watch it again. I know I have, like 40 times, and I still can't believe it. If there was any place in the movie where close-ups of the characters' faces were needed, this would be it. Then there's a medium close-up of Prime and Megatron as they fight. That's pretty shaky and you can't tell what the is going on. And then it cuts away, just like it did in the Blackout opening attack sequence, just like it did in the Barricade Bumblebee battle. What the I think it was actually Dr. Phil, the real one, not the imitation Sector 7 guy here, that said, "Past behavior is the best indicator of future behavior." We can adapt that for the movie here and say, the way action sequences were edited and filmed earlier are the way they're going to be edited and filmed later. As with that Bumblebee and Barricade fight, just when it gets going, it cuts away to something less interesting. Frenzy fighting Sam and Hottie 1. Or here, the army guys fighting Blackout. Who gives a I don't care about Blackout at all. Still, he was the first Decepticon in the movie, and we don't know anything about him. He hasn't spoken, and he has no personality. We, the audience, have no invested emotion regarding his ultimate fate. Please cut back to Megatron and Optimus. This is like going to Caesar's Palace to see Tyson versus Holyfield and cutting away during the battle in the ring to a fight at the door between security and some guy claiming he lost his ticket. I didn't come to see this bull. Give me the main event. Ever since the legendary battle in the 1986 cartoon movie when these two symbols of good and evil fought, we've been dreaming of the live-action version. And you know what? The cartoon films it 100 times better. Rewatch that fight. The camera angles are brilliant, and the cartoon version actually causes an emotional reaction. All the live-action version needed to do, at minimum, was copy the cartoon battle between Megatron and Prime shot for shot, and it would have been great. But somehow it was shot horribly, as if some intern had to fill in because everyone was out sick that day. And for some reason, it cuts away from the most engaging moment in the movie. Why? Well, again, remember that past behavior equals future behavior. This applies to the man steering the cinematic ship, the captain who must in the end take ultimate responsibility for everyone under his command and the end product that results. Director Michael Bay. I just want to be clear here. I'm actually a fan of Michael Bay. I think he's a talented action director. It's no accident that Armageddon and The Rock are solid action movies. I know there's a number of movie lovers that hate him, that think he's destroying the art of cinema. I wouldn't go that far. Remember, it takes two to destroy cinematic quality. Those that make movies, and those that make movies into successful blockbusters. The cash-paying audience. So let's take responsibility for our own actions also. And remember, nobody sits behind the camera saying, I want to make a movie. I want to pollute cinema with shallow set-piece-driven popcorn spectacles that provide no nutrition for the soul and instead create spiritual cavities. I would say Michael Bay is doing the best he can with the knowledge that he's gained since directing Bad Boys in 1995. It's obvious here that he has some room, just like everyone, to grow, and in this case, in one major key filmmaking area: storytelling. He may be a master filmer of action, but in terms of storytelling, he's an apprentice, a Padawan. He focuses totally on kinetics and thrills, and neglects character relationships and emotion. And because he's confirmed as the director for Transformers 2 in 2009, let's make some suggestions that might make him a better storyteller, which hopefully will result in a better sequel. First, he needs to direct a straight-up drama. Does anyone remember in 1999, horror master Wes Craven directed a drama called Music of the Heart? It starred multiple Best Actress winner Meryl Streep, Oscar nominee Angela Bassett, Oscar winner Cloris Leachman, and Emmy nominee Aidan Quinn. And it was a pretty touching movie. That's what Michael Bay needs to do right now. Direct a hardcore drama. Something like American Beauty, or Terms of Endearment, or Little Miss Sunshine. I know, I laughed for like 10 minutes when I thought of a poster that read, Michael Bay's Little Miss Sunshine. You could imagine the family in the VW bus with a fireball in the background. But really, seriously, this is a homework assignment for how to become a well-rounded director 101. To name a few other directors that have made big-budget action, sci-fi, or fantasy blockbusters, but started with dramas as a foundation to their cinematic education. Bryan Singer, director of X-Men 1 and 2, started with The Usual Suspects and Apt Pupil. Peter Jackson, director of many horror movies and The Lord of the Rings, directed the amazing Heavenly Creatures. Christopher Nolan, director of Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, also made Memento. Steven Spielberg, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park 1 and 2, War of the Worlds, the list goes on, started with Sugarland Express, E.T., The Color Purple, and of course, Schindler's List. George Lucas began with American Graffiti. Sam Raimi, Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, directed A Simple Plan and For Love of the Game. James Cameron started with sci-fi action films and eventually went on to make Titanic, which we all know won a load of Oscars. Robert Zemeckis. Before the Back to the Future trilogy and Beowulf, there was I Wanna Hold Your Hand and Forrest Gump. Lawrence Kasdan, director of The Accidental Tourist and The Big Chill, also wrote Raiders of the Lost Ark and Empire Strikes Back. Directing dramas focuses the energy on that which matters most in storytelling, characters and their relationships. Everything else is just an extension, a visual manifestation of what's on the inside of the people doing the fighting, whether it's verbal or physical, whether it's kinetic or comedic. If there's nothing on the inside, it'll seem lifeless on the outside. All of these storytellers and master filmmakers are also writers. So, homework assignment number 2 for Mr. Bay before directing Transformers the sequel is to write and direct a movie, preferably a drama, maybe a drama comedy, but definitely no action. This way, another level of filmmaker thought will take place. Right now, it's obvious the how do I take a picture of this action center of Mr. Bay's brain works fine. It's time to nurture the why are these characters doing these things center of the brain. Oh, and just to clarify, the first homework assignment, to direct a drama, should also be written by an Oscar-winning or Oscar-nominated writer. Alan Ball, Brian Helgeland, Gary Ross, and of course, William Goldman. Anyone who has proven they can write stories dealing with three-dimensional people. And both movies should star Oscar-winning and or nominated actors and actresses. Meryl Streep, Kevin Spacey, Denzel Washington, Hilary Swank, Halle Berry, Russell Crowe, Tom Hanks. Bring 'em all out. Hold nothing back. Then and only then will the eye that controls the destiny of Transformers 2 be opened a little more, and like Neo in the Matrix, it will be able to see deeper layers beyond the physical visuals and into the hidden code of the characters' souls, which will hopefully lead to the knowledge of how to, as John Carpenter put it, make the mental physical. Remember, the drama, the emotions choose the camera angles. The need for this self-work is obvious after watching this would-be final battle between our two favorite Transformers. And surprisingly, this potential for filmmaking disaster was actually foreshadowed. If anyone listened to the director's commentary on the DVD for 2005's The Island, Mr. Bay points out a scene that Steven Spielberg told him he missed a shot in. It's when the two characters emerge from the underground city for the first time and see the sun, the sky, the desert, and the shot stays wide. Spielberg told Bay that he needed a close-up of the characters' reactions, and Bay admits that he missed it. Unfortunately, the lesson was not learned, and the mistake is repeated here more than once, as we've seen in Transformers. So if Bay is to be the man again, hopefully there's enough time for him to become the man, the complete storyteller. Transformers 2 needs to transform itself from a popcorn escapist movie into a total sensory overloading visual, emotional, Oscar-worthy experience. Part 2 should be like Empire Strikes Back, Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, Spider-Man 2, and Terminator 2. Empire is by far the most complete sci-fi sequel ever, and Transformers 2 will need a lot of work to get there. It has taken a baby step in the right direction recently, with the addition of Aaron Kruger to the writing team. He's done a lot of horror movies, most notably the American remakes of The Ring 1 and 2, but he started with Arlington Road, a well-crafted psychological thriller. So hopefully, the screenplay will be a bit stronger for the sequel. Okay, I've talked over the climax and resolutions of Transformers, so let's review how the movie ended. Let's see what was resolved, or sort of resolved, and set up for the sequel. The humans defeat Blackout, specifically the guy with the baby and wife at home. Again, a little something deeper could have been added if Blackout had killed his best friend earlier, at the base or in the desert. So now, this guy would want revenge. The Starscream battle with the planes is pretty amazing. Seeing him half transformed while zooming through the air and taking out all the planes rocks pretty hard. But the impact is minimal, because he has no relationship with Megatron on screen. We don't know what he wants or how he feels, and he ends up flying back into space. A major setup for the sequel. Maybe he's going back to Cybertron, or the Decepticon base on Mars, if there is one, to get reinforcements, like Soundwave, Astrotrain, the Real Devastator, and a whole lot more, hopefully. Megatron dies. Yes, he's totally defeated by Sam. Okay, fine, let's go with it. Sam puts the cube in Megatron's chest and kills him. But Optimus takes out a little remaining piece of it. No doubt that's a setup for the sequel. Perhaps it'll still be able to function even though Prime's voiceover claims it's useless and destroyed. Which is also what the voiceover claims about Megatron. He and the other Decepticons are dumped in the ocean to such a depth that they'll be crushed. Okay, let's go with it. Even though in reality, wouldn't the government want to study him some more? Or, if they really wanted to destroy him and the other robots, how about dumping them in a volcano? You know, melting them into puddles of ooze? This is kind of a dumb setup for Part 2, where no doubt Starscream and the new batch of Decepticons will go to the bottom of the ocean, salvage his corpse, and bring him back to life, or transfer his consciousness into a new form, perhaps Galvatron. What else? Oh yeah, Bumblebee is finally able to speak, and he sounds like an English butler. Maybe he should have been called Jeeves. Again, there's no need for him to be mute during this movie, other than to delay the story. And it's only now at the end that Ratchet figures out how to fix his voice box. Remind me not to go to the emergency room if Ratchet is working. Sam finally gets Hottie 1 and they make out on top of Bumblebee. Which, if I was Bumblebee, I'd feel awkward about. The soldier guy goes home to his wife and baby in probably the cheesiest shot of the movie, with the sun setting in the background as he holds up his little princess. The Secretary of Defense announces that Sector 7 has been dismantled. Why? They've got a lot of information and could be helpful if any future robot battles occur. This is a pretty bad resolution for Sector 7. More importantly, we should have seen the John Turturro character, maybe put in jail, or something funny, maybe selling cars with Bernie Mac. Something ironic, but at least something. And we don't see Hottie 2 or the DDR playing hacker at all. So that's totally missed. I guess they won't be in the sequel. And finally, Optimus stands on the top of a hill, telling us he's sending out a distress call to any other Autobots in hiding, which is the same thing as telling us in the audience that yes, there will be a Part 2. And that's it. The movie is over, and so is this commentary. Hopefully, the questions raised, the suggestions made, and the alternate rewrite presented inspires demand for higher overall quality in the Transformers sequel. In the Transformers movie preview review, I gave the movie a worthy rating for viewing at regular price because it was a special effects lover's wet dream, and also said, holy f***ing shit, this looks awesome. And I stand by that. It does look f***ing awesome. The visuals are f***ing amazing. The problem is that it feels empty. Now that Transformers Movie Mania has somewhat cooled, that overwhelming lust phase is over, and we are finally starting to see it for what it really is. A collection of amazing visuals hung on a weak story filled with neglected, undernourished characters. This movie is like the Charlie Brown Christmas tree. The tinsel and bulbs hanging from it are beautiful, but the tree itself, the spine, the screenplay, is weak and puny. With about 2 years to the next installment, we have plenty of time to have a virtual town meeting and hopefully make a difference. Again, make video responses, comment, and discuss the movie with each other. And consider yourself invited to join the YouTube group Till All Are One. Thanks very much for taking the time to listen to this commentary. It's extremely appreciated. Until next time, may your movie choices be worthy of your time, money, and energy. Take care, and as always, long live good movies.